across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, top of the morning to you. I'm Mark Dolan, in for the brilliant Alex Phillips, and this is Talk, the home of common sense. A very big 3 hours for you. In just one moment's time, the monologue is back. In today's Dolan's Dispatch, digital ID is the path to tyranny and the road to hell. As the Prime Minister rolls out this compulsory identification platform, which will affect access to public services, as well as the right to work and gain accommodation, will bring reaction from across the political spectrum. While some within government support the policy, an unlikely coalition of figures on the left and the right are already mounting a campaign against it, with the likes of Labour's ultra-left-wing MP Richard Bergen and Reform leader the one and only Nigel Farage, united in their opposition to this policy. But most importantly, what do you think? 0344 499 1000. It's a story which is going to dominate the entirety of the show. I make no apologies for that. Executive producer Ted makes no apologies for that. It's the only show in town. Digital ID, yes or no? Book your place on the show. It's all about your opinions. Also, what about this in regard to Sir Keir Starmer? Is Andy Burnham the answer to Britain's problems? And are you sick, by the way, of seeing so many foreign flags on our streets? Robert Jenrick is very unhappy about it. He's given an exclusive interview to the Sun newspaper. Is it time to crack down on the proliferation of international symbols and instead celebrate our own flag for once? And Donald Trump said that Sharia law is coming to London. Was this an exaggeration or a foreshadowing of the future? What exactly is Sharia law? Why is it such a worry? I'll be speaking to a British Muslim who is deeply concerned about this illiberal, illegal and un-British method of justice. And a bit of royal gossip. Has Prince Harry's UK return driven a wedge between King Charles and his son William? We've got the inside story. 0344 499 1000. The next 3 hours is all about your opinions. Let's get them on the radio. Let's get them on TV. Let's talk. I'm delighted to say that the brilliant Annunziata Rees-Mogg is waiting in the wings. She's not happy about ID cards one bit. But first, Dolan's Dispatch. Compulsory digital ID is the end of Britain as we know it. To be honest, I've got a bit of deja vu going on because I sat in this very studio in 2020 hosting the Drive Time show during COVID when it was announced that the wearing of masks would be mandated in this country following previous suggestions that wearing one might be a good idea, a low-cost, harmless intervention. But remember, what starts as a benevolent suggestion and is marketed as being something for your own good is always ultimately the path to tyranny. Masks, just like digital ID, which by the way is a recycled idea from the pathologically wicked Tony Blair, masks were mandatory And that was the problem, and that is the problem with digital ID. Now, in protest way back in 2020, live on Talk, on this very network, I tore up one of those filthy, worthless, scientifically empty face masks with a pair of scissors. And I'm so glad I did. And this great and fearless network, Talk, stood by me all the way. And we were vindicated. Because what followed in the months and years ahead was the worst example of state authoritarianism in the history of this country. The economic suicide of lockdowns, with healthy people prevented from going to work and providing for their families and contributing to the economy. Children as young as 11 masked all day long in the classroom, and with the bizarre obligation on millions of people to take a novel medication in their arm that statistically the vast majority did not need. And yet you had to have the jab to get a pint, to travel, to go to the cinema. Can you imagine if we'd had digital IDs during the pandemic? Yikes. Which is why we must not have them now. Because they may appear to be a mild intervention at first, but will be leveraged against us very rapidly and aggressively when the next so-called emergency comes along. We will, of course, be fed the snake oil lie that this is about modernisation, that it's about streamlining everything, that it's about efficiency and that it's convenient. Well, if it's so good, if digital ID is such a great idea, why isn't it voluntary? Why can't we choose? Why is it going to be mandatory? I mean, your doctor doesn't have to mandate antibiotics when you've got an infection. The infection hurts, you take the antibiotics and it goes away. Why is it mandatory? Well, because ultimately it's against your best interests as a sovereign individual. That's why they're forcing it on you. The biggest lie from Starmer is that digital ID will, wait for it, tackle illegal immigration. Now, would that be the same Sir Keir Starmer that said he would grow the economy and smash the gangs? Digital ID will appear at first like a harmless, innocuous measure, but it provides the infrastructure for state interference in every aspect of our lives. Let's just leap forward and have a think about how this technology could pan out in the future. We're in a climate emergency, folks. Did you eat too much beef this week? Or have you taken too many flights this year? Well, I'm afraid you've maxed out your carbon allowance. You are staying home. You may want to travel or buy a steak, but your digital ID card won't let you. Criticise the government or a religion. I mean, dare you criticise Islam, the most precious, wonderful Islam. Don't criticise it. And if you do, that's going on your digital ID and may bring penalties. Perhaps you told an off-colour joke, a politically incorrect joke, when you were down the pub the other day with your mates. Well, that's going on your digital ID card, potentially. And maybe the last pint that you'll be buying because of your outrageous and awful hate speech. Yes, some of this is a worst-case scenario. I get you that. Some of you would call it a conspiracy theory. But they have a social credit score in China, where your card stops working for minor indiscretions. And we are saying yes to that technology, and we are saying yes to that infrastructure here. We'll be tracked, surveilled, filmed, watched, snooped upon, invaded, violated, abused. Digital ID opens the door to an Orwellian nightmare. Big Brother isn't just watching you, he's in your pocket, he's on your smartphone, and effectively, he's in your soul. All of this brought to us by someone with no soul whatsoever, our current Prime Minister, who doesn't even feel like a real person himself. How ironic that someone so robot-like should roll out this technology. Sir Keir Starmer, the human manifestation of ChatGPT software gone horribly wrong. If you thought that COVID was authoritarian tyranny, you ain't seen nothing yet. This, like the chopped up mask all those years ago, is a hill to die on. Peacefully, obviously, and within the law. But ultimately, digital ID means that you are not a free, self-determining human being anymore. You're nothing more than a bundle of data waiting to be absorbed into the government's ruthless algorithm. This scheme will be open to hackers, corruption, it will be riven with mistakes and errors, and it won't stop illegal immigration, as crooked employers, for example, already know that they're breaking the law by hiring illegals. And some of those illegals will turn to crime if they can't work, so be careful what you wish for. And this scheme will cost billions. It'll cost billions. Money that, thanks to Rachel from Accounts, we don't have. But the real price, in terms of our fundamental freedoms and our humanity, will be far higher than that. I'd like to present my digital ID card to the Prime Minister personally, and I'd like to present it where the sun doesn't shine. Now, where's my scissors? Your reaction, 03444991000. With me now live on the programme, the head of communications at Popular Conservatism. Someone feels very strongly about this topic is Annunziata Rees-Mogg. Good morning, Annunziata. Welcome to Talk.
Good morning, Mark.
Well, listen, I mean, I'm very, very concerned about the cost of this and the impact on our civil liberties. What's your take on this rollout of digital IDs, which will be mandatory?
It's absolutely appalling. It is clearly Keir Starmer trying to divert attention from all the disasters that are going on under his watch, from the economy to his own office falling to pieces to Mandelson and resignations, and he wants to come up with something shiny and exciting that he thinks people can get behind. He is completely wrong. The reason Tony Blair never got this through back in his day was because it was virtually impossible with the systems we've got. The cost was enormous. Even back in 2010, it was estimated to be £100 for every adult to put in place. Well, I don't know about your listeners, but I think another £100 in tax to cover a scheme we don't need is absolutely unconscionable at the moment. And then you've got the civil liberties arguments where, I mean, for the first time, I think probably ever, I am agreeing with Jeremy Corbyn, Richard Bergen, the Liberal Democrats, and Nigel Farage all in one go, because it is the wrong thing to do. This is Tony Blair's plan that was completely trashed, proven not to work, proven to impinge on our social liberties, and they've brought it back on acid. So imagine a granny without a smartphone who wants to report a pothole. Oh no. No, you can't prove that you've got a digital ID. Well, this is absurd. They are just as entitled to report a problem in their street as anyone else. And this will encompass all areas of our lives. You brought up the errors that could happen. I know from personal experience that in COVID, I was erroneously put down as a vulnerable person. It caused all sorts of problems. They thought I was still pregnant, although I had my baby in February 2020. And yet it carried on, and to go to anything I had to prove that I had had jabs, which I did not need. Now, the government as it stands, you might trust. I don't. I don't support Labour. I don't think Keir Starmer has a grasp on any of this. But if you do support this and you think Keir Starmer's the man to do it, will you be trusting Nigel Farage or Kemi Badenoch or whoever the next Prime Minister is to continue to use all your data, from no doubt whether you've ever accessed an over-18s website through to what you've said on Twitter, via the problems with your local council, your employment, your ability to see your doctor? Do you trust them?
In the event of a Reform UK-led government or the return of the Conservatives, which, let's be honest, at the moment looks unlikely, but should either Kemi Badenoch or Nigel Farage become Prime Minister in 3 or 4 years' time, should they pledge to scrap this scheme?
Absolutely. It must be stopped before it starts, that there is no point messing up all our existing systems, that one of the reasons Tony Blair couldn't do it in his day was that it was virtually impossible to make driving licenses, doctors' records, passports, gun licenses, all the different forms of ID that people collect over their lives compatible. into one database. But if the government has started doing that, they've already got a better picture of every aspect of our lives than I trust them with. Whoever does come in not only has to scrap it, but has to pledge that all of that data will then be separated back out again, because in the government's hands, it gives them a power that is deeply un-British, deeply unconstitutional. We are free men and women in our own country until the law says we're not, and this turns our entire legal system on its head.
Income tax, of course, back in the day was a temporary measure, and then it grew and remained with us to this day. Is there a danger that once this infrastructure is in place, it would be very difficult financially and perhaps politically for a future administration to scrap it?
It absolutely would. And once you've interconnected everything, as we know from leaving the European Union, disconnecting things again is a huge challenge.
So this is our only chance, you would say, this is our only chance to see this off at the pass, actually?
Of course you can always retrospectively change things, but it would be much better for the country, for our finances and for our liberty to make sure this doesn't happen now. I know there's a petition on the parliamentary website that overnight got 500,000 signatures. I hope that continues. I think the number 10 spin doctors, if there are any left after quite as many resignations as Keir Starmer has had recently in his office, will have been rewriting his speech rapidly. I suspect that he will water it down somewhat, but it needs to go entirely. I find it deeply ironic that he is giving this speech at the Global Progress Action Summit. This is a summit to defend and promote inclusive societies. That's what this is all about. It's an agenda to control the British people.
It's deeply worrying. Do you think that Starmer has underestimated the extent to which people do not want digital ID? Has he bitten off more than he can chew here?
I think clearly that I, like you, am no fan of Tony Blair, but he was certainly a lot more competent, able and politically agile than Keir Starmer. He also had the backing of his party, unlike Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer has lost his left-wing MPs already. His backbenchers have already rebelled against him, and he's trying to bring in a Blairite policy. That is not going to go down well with them, but also he is not competent. This is a phenomenally complicated and intricate, interconnected plan, and if Tony Blair couldn't do it, can Starmer?
Of course, you could argue, Annunziata, that the technology is now at the government's disposal, which it wasn't in the Blair years. What's the problem with having your medical records in one place and the ability to get benefits or rent a flat or purchase a mobile phone using one piece of identification? Surely it would make life a lot more convenient for people, wouldn't it?
I think it has very little impact. There's very few occasions on where any of those things overlap. We do have the ability to do all of those, and we have IDs for them. I have an NHS number. I have a driving license and a passport. I can travel. I can see my doctor. I can book appointments. I can drive on the roads. That you don't need to have all of that connected so that the government can have an exact idea of every aspect of your life. And I think if I worked in the public sector, I would be particularly worried about this. That what if they are tracking other aspects of your life and the government decides that's not the right kind of thing to be doing? You mentioned going to the pub and buying a pint. What if they think you've had too many pints?
Yeah, for your health, of course. To what extent do you think will the public dig their heels on this one? Will there be mass protests? Could this be a significant public demonstration?
I mean, I know that back in 2000, I think it's 2006, there were naked protests where people went down Whitehall with no clothes on whatsoever to show that they couldn't carry any form of ID. And I think this is a wonderfully British way to protest in the most practical possible way, that you can't carry a mobile phone. If you're starkers, I will not be joining them. But I think the public feeling is strong on this. And I hope that the government, for once, is listening.
Annunziata, look forward to catching up very soon. Annunziata Rees-Mogg is the head of communications at Popular Conservatism. Digital ID, Mark, a big fat no. I've signed the petition. That's Michelle in Altrincham. Good morning, Mark. When will Starmer stand down? Digital ID is just a deflection tactic to cover his failing government. Anne in Kent, OMG, Mark, digital ID. I'm taking this very seriously and I'm completely against it. The government petition was signed by us last night to prevent their totally trying to control us. Mark, if I was Sir Stalin Starmer, I would be looking at the map of where over 705,000 people have signed in protest against digital ID. Well, here's a question for you. Could this policy of digital ID be Sir Keir Starmer's poll tax? We'll discuss that next.
Through lockdown and more recently through the police going and interviewing people for criminal hate crime.
Yeah.
And it's really 1984 speak, isn't it? That I am sceptical that the police wouldn't use it and start demanding ID cards. So from having been agnostic, neutral, I'm swinging against because of the experience of the police.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, will you be rejecting the idea of digital ID cards? Will you protest? Will you take to the streets? Martin says, hi Mark, digital ID as a phone app, thanks but no thanks. Could this see the revival of old school Nokia brick phones as sensible punters ditch their smartphones en masse to avoid Big Brother's all-seeing eye? Georgina is in London. Georgina, welcome to Talk.
Good morning, Mark. Great to talk to you. Well, I don't think people realise how dangerous a digital ID is to your freedoms. I mean, digital ID is yet another stranglehold constraint that's going to be brought in to further control the finances and the movement of every adult in Britain. And it is more dangerous to the freedoms than people actually realise. It's nothing whatsoever to do with curtailing the problems of mass illegal immigration. It never has been, Mark. This is a communist ideology, and it was Tony Blair's Fabianistic dream. I mean, where were the referendums or the democratic votes to bring this in? I don't remember the referendums, do you? This is a governmental blackmail tactic, whereas if you refuse to comply, you will be denied amenities that as a taxpayer you have already paid to attain. And also a way in which compulsory vaccination would be obligatory, as if you refuse vaccination, which is your democratic right to do so, you'd be denied right of passage to go abroad or go about your daily life. This is an inclandestine and Orwellian nightmare that's being brought into your life to take away your freedoms and take total control. It's as simple as that. And the finances to fund this nightmare will as always be given to us, the taxpayer, who will in essence be paying for our own demise.
Georgina, it feels like we're fixing something that isn't broke.
Well, I've always gone by the fallacy, if it is not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
And this government like I've said all along, you know, you never give a socialist a checkbook and you never put a gun in the hand of a child. And this is like putting a gun in the hand of a child as far as I'm concerned. They don't need any more information on the people of Britain. We have passports. We have, you know, your identification numbers on your cars. What do they call them? Oh, goodness gracious.
What, your national insurance?
National insurance card. Yeah, they've got all the information, Mark, that they need. They don't need any more information.
Is it not handy to have it all in one place and you don't have to run around looking for phone bills and other examples or evidence of your home address?
Listen, we haven't needed that. We've never needed that. This is about control, Mark, and that is it. It's as simple as that. It's got nothing to do with making things more convenient. This is making things more convenient for the government to keep an eye on every aspect of the British people.
Georgina, what will you be doing to personally reject the idea? Will you take to the streets? What measures will you take to say no?
Well, I am not. I'm an older lady, Mark, as I've said before, you know, but I will most definitely protest against this. This is taking away our freedoms, Mark. We have had our forefathers die to give us the freedoms that we have. We've been through world wars. We've seen our loved ones slaughtered on battlefields. We are not going to sit back and watch while the Labour government take away the freedoms that our forefathers fought to give us. This is unacceptable. And if they think for one moment they're going to get away with this, then they have got another serious thing coming.
Georgina, thank you for that. Let's speak again soon. This is a voice note courtesy of Jason. Jason, take it away.
There's absolutely no way on earth I can see them getting this through. And if they do, they're going to have a backlash similar to the poll tax riots. They can't just keep pecking away at the British taxpayers like they're doing. Something's going to come to a head. I would think there'll be a general election anyway before this could go through. I certainly hope so. But I mean, you know, there's thousands of homeless people on the streets. How are they going to implement digital IDs for them? The travelling communities. There's so many people that are just going to, you know, not going to work, is it?
Why has Sir Keir Starmer picked this fight with the British public, who certainly, having listened to talk today all morning, don't want it? Daniel's in Epsom. Daniel, why is Starmer doing this?
I don't know why Starmer's doing it, but he seems to be diametrically opposed to everything that the British majority think and feel up and down the country. He in every facet, in every issue, he seems to be at the other end of the spectrum from the majority of Britons. Now, I remember when I was a kid, we'd say to each other, it's a free country, I'll say what I like. But under Labour, it won't be a free country anymore. And we're born free in this country. We have a freedom to travel, freedom of speech, and I took those things for granted. But now this Labour government are in, I've got 3 children. There's no way that I'm going to allow any government to come in and change my children's future freedoms. They've got another thing coming. I'm prepared to fight for it, Mark. And when someone like me, a successful guy, I've got my own business, when I'm willing to go out and protest, this government are... do you know what, as well? There's no point in this socialist Labour government bringing this in, because I tell you what, all they've really done is just given Reform another 1 million votes by announcing this.
Daniel, listen, always love to take your call. Look forward to catching up in the near future. Daniel Epsom, not happy. Could the unpopularity of digital ID bring down Sir Keir Starmer's government? I'll be asking the author of The Road to Big Brother next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So is digital ID fixing a problem that ain't a problem in this country? Are we fixing something that's not broke? Let's speak to Ross Clark, columnist at the Sun newspaper and author of The Road to Big Brother. Good morning, Ross.
Good morning, Mark.
Ross, why this policy and why now?
I think it's Keir Starmer's way to try to fob off people who've been very critical of his failures over illegal migration. And so he sort of latched onto digital ID cards. But I mean, what problem is it trying to solve? He says this, he's saying this morning, well, it's going to stop people working illegally. Well, how? I mean, we already have national insurance numbers which you have to present to somebody to take a job, show you have the right to work in Britain. Now, if there are employers who aren't asking for that now, why should they suddenly start asking for a digital ID?
Well, crooked employers know that they are hiring illegals. That's the point. They know they're breaking the law.
Well, exactly. So it's going to make no difference whatsoever. Of course, the real problem we have with illegal migration is Tony Blair's other great Love in Life, the Human Rights Act, which is preventing us from deporting criminals, terrorists and opportunists to trying to take advantage of the asylum system. And that's where the problem lies, not in some ID card system.
Is it a concern also that if this infrastructure is rolled out, any future government, even if they objected to the policy, would be stuck with them? Do you think that the Prime Minister, Nigel Farage or Kemi Badenoch or others, Sir Ed Davey, may God help us, would it be difficult for them to reverse this policy?
Well, no government can tie the hands of its successors. So, I mean, any government could produce a parliamentary act and reverse whatever act it wants to. So, no, it doesn't necessarily.
But they probably wouldn't, would they? They probably wouldn't at that point. And isn't that the issue? Isn't that why this is an important sort of battle that we have now? Because once the infrastructure's there, you're probably stuck with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's something we should oppose because it's happening now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, what problem is it trying to solve? And let's look at some of the implications of digital IG. This would create huge opportunities for commercial organisations to collect data on us. And just look at the way the electoral roll is sold off to commercial interests. DVLA database is sold to parking companies. They send us parking fines. And exactly the same will happen with data which is captured on digital ID cards. It will be a sort of commercial minefield, of commercial, huge opportunity for companies which collect data. And this is why there is such a, been such a campaign on the part of the ID card lobby to force them on us. And the other people that create huge opportunities for, of course, are fraudsters. Digital ID will create a one-stop shop for stealing our identity, something which is, more and more difficult at the moment because you have to collect information from different places. In future, you get hold of somebody's phone, you access their digital ID, and you will be able to pose as them.
And there will be a double cost, won't there, Ross? The cost to the exchequer, and we know that the country's already in the red. We're broke. I don't know where these billions are going to come from, but it will be an enormous cost for business and industry as well.
Well, yes, somebody's going to have to pay for these digital ID cards, and I don't think government has made it clear what it intends on that. Is it going to charge us 50 quid for the privilege of having a digital ID on our smartphone, or
well, I understand it's going to be free.
General taxation.
It's going to be free, but it will obviously it's going to come out of the treasury, isn't it? And it will be a burden on businesses.
It comes out of our taxes.
Yeah, exactly, and a burden on businesses too if they've got to have technology to check this ID.
Well, yes, maybe. What kind of what kind of regime is going to be imposed on businesses and on landlords, for example, to collect this information before they're allowed to do business with anybody, employ anybody, or rent a property to anybody. There's a lot of details which have yet to be come out, but certainly not going to be beneficial to most of us. It's just going to be an irritant, and it's so the government says today, it's only going to be for work and for renting property or something. You can bet your bottom dollar when it's up and running, it will be for the right to park here, the right to travel by a rail ticket, and all these things will be added on as sort of, further down the line. And, we'll get to the position where it's impossible for anyone to go anywhere, do anything without taking a smartphone with them, which of course then discriminates against those people who find it very difficult to use smartphones. So the elderly and people with learning difficulties and so on. It's going to be a way of sort of excluding them from society, which is very dismal prospect.
Has Sir Keir Starmer bitten off more than he can chew with this policy? Is it going to be a poll tax moment for him, do you think?
The polls at the moment suggest there's sort of quite a lot of support for it, but I think the more the implications become clear, the less support there will be. And it's interesting why he suddenly warmed to the idea of digital ID cards, given his government till a few months ago was rejecting the idea, and then suddenly he's all for it. And it's interesting, 2 days ago the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change produced a big paper on this, recommending the case for digital ID cards, and 2 days later they suddenly become a fact of life. It's very peculiar. Is Tony Blair pulling the strings of Keir Starmer's government? I don't know.
You wrote a fascinating book which actually sold very well, The Road to Big Brother. So you've actually forewarned about this issue, a surveillance society. However, our predictions that this could become similar to the Chinese credit score, whereby if you've got a parking ticket or you haven't paid your tax bill or you've been critical of the government, then, you know, the card won't work and you can't get home on the train. Is that an exaggeration? Is that wide of the mark? Is that a conspiracy theory?
Well, I hope we're not going to go quite as far as down the road as China, and maybe people who'd like to take us down that road, but we do remain a democracy and we can fight against these things. And I think when the implications become clear, people will start to fight against it more.
Ross, it's been too long. What a treat to have you on the show. My thanks to the brilliant journalist, columnist at the Sun newspaper and author of The Road to Big Brother, Ross Clark. We've got a voice note from Josh on digital ID. Over to you, Josh.
I think we can easily sort it by getting rid of one word: digital. Have one little plastic card, goes in your wallet, and it can be useful when you need to claim benefits, go to the hospital, get a job, or buy a car, buy knives. It's a proof of ID which we can help in the long run. If it's digital, it's bad. If it's just a physical little card, it can't be updated, can't be monitored, and they can't track you for what you're doing from it. I think a digital app is where it gets into shady areas.
We've got a developing story for you. The terrorism case against kneecap rapper Liam O'Ganahy has been thrown out by the Chief Magistrate sitting at Woolwich Crown Court following a technical error in the way that the charge against him was brought. We'll bring you more when we get it, but it looks like a man who has had a serious case against him in regards to anti-Semitic remarks walks free. I've got more on digital ID. This is Simon who's left a voice note. Simon.
You can see this coming down the pipe. You can see it coming a mile away. The accusations from Starmer and his acolytes. If you don't get on board with the new ID system, you are clearly unpatriotic. You are not getting on board with the fight against illegal migration. They'll gaslight us. They'll do everything they can do to push forward this ridiculous system. He needs to go. Get him out.
Wow, listen, feelings are running very high on this one. But next up, Donald Trump said that Sharia law is coming to London. Is that true? Is it an exaggeration, or is he simply a portent of the future? What is Sharia law? How prevalent is it? And why is that such a problem? We'll discuss that next.
They're going to call them brick cards. Brick card, please. You know, that isn't the British way. We've never done that sort of thing. And people say, oh, they have it in America. They don't really. I mean, I lived in the States. You have to have a driving license, even if you don't have a car. This is East Germany. This is Stalin's Russia. This is China. You know, this isn't. And so they say, well, this is going to be the best way to solve the migrant crisis.
That's just rubbish.
It's rubbish.
Yeah.
This is about control. This is classic socialist control.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Digital ID. Lorraine is not happy. Mark Starmer is the most sinister snake this country has ever seen as Prime Minister. He's betrayed the indigenous British electorate at every level. Chagos, fishing, farming, elderly, illegal immigration, Jewish people, democracy, employers, etc. Be in no doubt, says Lorraine, that digital ID will never be in the best interests of us. It will be used as a weapon to control anyone who dares to speak out or have a viewpoint different to the left. Starmer lies when his lips move, and he's a traitor. This is treacherous. Lorraine not pulling her punches. If you're enthusiastic about digital ID, do let me know. Give me a call, because this show is all about opinions. 0344 499 1000. Now, earlier this week, it was the opinion of Donald Trump, the President of the United States, at the UN, that London wants to, and I quote, go to Sharia law under its terrible mayor, Sadiq Khan. Now, whilst any claim that London is moving its legal system to Sharia is obviously false, the US President's comments have touched a nerve, given growing public concerns about the influence of Islamic law over the capital's Muslim communities and communities across the country. What is Sharia law and why is it a problem? How prevalent is it? Let's speak to Muhammad Amin, who is the ex-chairman of the Conservative Muslim Forum. Muhammad, welcome to Talk.
Good morning, Mark.
Can you tell us in layman's terms what Sharia law is?
Yes, the first mistake is, although it's done very commonly, is to put the two words Sharia and law together. Islam has a long history and legal tradition, and law in Islam is called fiqh, which means jurisprudence. Sharia is a word that basically means all of the teachings and doctrines of Islam. The word Sharia itself originates as the path to water at an oasis. And think of the word Sharia as meaning the path to salvation.
Okay, well, that's an interesting and helpful correction. So therefore, how prevalent is the practicing of this sort of legal doctrine across the UK?
Well, let's take a concrete example. I'm a Muslim. I got married in a registry office in Havering in 1978 because I know how important it is to be properly married under English law. As far as I'm concerned, that did not make sex between me and my wife religiously permissible, because I believe that premarital sex is wrong. What made our sexual relationship religiously permissible is that on that same day, we also had a religious wedding conducted in accordance with the teachings of Sharia. That's an example of prevalence.
And therefore, can you give me some of the more extreme examples of a verdict that would be handed down by a Sharia judiciary in this country, even if it was an unofficial one, which by definition it would be?
It's always unofficial. We've had Jewish religious tribunals or Jewish religious courts in this country from ever since we've had Jews in Britain. They're called Beth Din. And not well known, we also have Christian religious courts that determine certain issues inside the churches completely separate from the English legal system. One area which actually causes a lot of problems is that in Islam, divorce is widely understood to be asymmetrical, in the sense that I could divorce my wife by telling her I'm divorcing her on 3 separate occasions, but most Muslims believe that wives cannot divorce their husbands the same way. So women who get trapped in a religious marriage, and by the way, this is also an issue in the Jewish community, have trouble getting out of that religious marriage. But one way of doing that is to go to a Sharia tribunal and get the Sharia tribunal to give them a certificate that their marriage really is over. The husband is basically not behaving as a proper husband. There are other things wrong. The marriage is broken down. And once she's got that certificate, she feels comfortable getting married again. It's a matter of people's personal religious opinions. It's got nothing to do with divorce under English law. And exactly the same issue applies in the Jewish community. In the Jewish community, women in that situation are called chained women because their husband won't give them a Jewish religious divorce called a get. And a Jewish Beth Din actually can't pronounce them divorced, but it can basically order the husband to give his wife a get. And if he doesn't do that, he will be ostracized by the Jewish community.
How prevalent are these unofficial Sharia courts in the UK?
I think I heard statistics like 60, 70, 80 of them around the country. I don't have hard data, but the whole point is that they're completely up to the people who wish to go to them for religious reasons. I've never set foot anywhere near a tribunal because I'm not interested in them.
Are they in competition, though, with the British rule of law?
Absolutely not. The British rule of law applies to every citizen, regardless of their religious beliefs, full stop.
However, are they a damaging and dangerous development, particularly as the British Muslim population grows?
Not in the slightest. They are performing a function for those Muslims who care about certain things, who want to have disputes, for example, arbitrated, because arbitration is not legal enforcement. In accordance with Muslim religious principles, you might have an argument about an inheritance, for example. The whole point is that they have no power except if the people who go before them agree to be bound by them. Otherwise, they have no power whatsoever.
But is there a danger that as the British Muslim community grows and those supportive of these Sharia courts become more vocal, that they could ultimately be in competition with the British judicial system, and that independent MPs, for example, in the House of Commons could begin campaigning for that, where Sharia law is legally binding?
I could go on forever about my view of the intelligence from these independent Muslim MPs in the House of Commons. Don't get me started on that. I'm a former Conservative Party member. I'm now a Liberal Democrat. My opinion of those guys is pretty low. But is there a risk of Sharia becoming the law of the country? No.
Fascinating stuff. And what about the remarks of Donald Trump saying Sharia law is coming to London? Do you think that that's wide of the mark? What's your reaction to the president's comments?
Donald Trump has it in for Sadiq Khan, frankly, because Sadiq Khan is a Muslim brown mayor of London. My opinion of Donald Trump is also extremely low.
There you go. Listen, I've got to say, a fascinating conversation. Mohammed, thank you very much for joining us. Mohammed Amin is the ex-chairman of the Conservative Muslim Forum. And your reaction to what he said, nothing to see here, folks. Sharia law is simply a religious instruction, no different to myself as a Roman Catholic, atoning for my sins in the confessional with the priest saying, go and be a good boy this week to Mrs. Dolan and the kids and all the rest of it. I'd love to know what you think about that. Mark, says John Peters, do you think that by announcing digital ID, it's taken the momentum of pursuing Morgan McSweeney's investigation? John in Bakewell. Well, it's certainly a good week to bury bad news, John. I think you raise a very fair point there. Suze says, good morning, Mark. I'm a pensioner and I can't afford my council tax and utilities, never mind a smartphone. I guess the government will give me a free phone, as they do with the illegals. Probably some pocket money as well, if you're lucky, Suze. Hi, Mark. How about this from Caroline? Digital ID must not be allowed to happen. Once the genie is out of the bottle, no future government will be able to put it back in. Well, that's my concern, because whoever becomes Prime Minister in 4 years' time, Caroline, will inevitably say, we've spent billions on this scheme and it's going to cost even more to reverse it, and therefore we're stuck with it. She goes on to say, once our data is captured, it's too late for any subsequent government to reverse. How can something so far-reaching be rushed through without debate or permission? This is not democracy. Thank you for that, Caroline. Morning, Mark, says John in Rugby. When you and Georgina were right when you both said you don't fix something if it's not broken. What Starmer's doing is breaking things deliberately, so he and all the other treacherous traitors can fix things to satisfy their dictatorial communist beliefs. Get rid ASAP, says John in Rugby. Herbie is in Harrow. Herbie, are you worried about Sharia law in this country?
Yes, I certainly am. There's only one law in this country, and that is English or British law, whichever way you want to put it. We can't go to their country and impose British or English law onto them. So why should they think they can do it to us? It's not right. There's only one law, and we've got to abide by that, nothing else.
Were you not persuaded and reassured by Mohammed Amin, the ex-chairman of the Conservative Muslim Forum, who said really all Sharia law is a religious instruction, it's not a law at all?
Well, why don't they call it a law then? Why don't they call it a religious instruction? If that's what it is, then call it what it is. It's an instruction, it's not law. So why should we impose it? Why should they impose this upon us? We don't agree with it, we don't believe in it, it should not be used. We can't, they just can't change the way of life just like that every time they want to do something.
And what do you make about Donald Trump's remarks regarding Sadiq Khan and London that has Sharia law already to a certain extent and more is coming?
Well, London's changing every day. I mean, say I'm in London. I was born in the East End of London, and I'm ashamed to call myself a Londoner anymore. Nothing seems to be going right. It seems to be going against us. Sadiq Khan imposes Eid, ceremonial when it comes to our religious beliefs. That nothing's been said or done. Easter, Christmas, or anything like that. It's changing beyond belief now, I'm afraid, Mark.
Indeed. And what about, just this idea that actually Sharia law is a misnomer and it is Sharia like a religious instruction, no different to the instructions that you would receive at a synagogue or a church?
Look, whatever your beliefs in, I've got no problems with that whatsoever, Mark. Don't convert me, I won't convert you. If you want me to take off my shoes, I will abide by that. But don't impose all this upon us. This is England. It's a Christian country. It's supposed to be a Christian country. Why can't they abide by our laws? Because this is what it's all about.
Herbie, I agree with you, and it is a Christian country. I can say that, which the Prime Minister struggles to say. Keir Starmer doesn't know what a woman is, doesn't know if Britain's a Christian country, and now he looks embarking upon a very unpopular policy. Could digital ID be Sir Keir Starmer's poll tax? Could it bring down his government? That's next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan, in for the brilliant Alex Phillips, and this is Talk, the home of common sense. A big 2 hours for you in today's Dolan's Dispatch. I was saying that digital ID is the path to tyranny and the road to hell. Well, the Prime Minister is now announcing this policy. It's going to cost a lot of money. What's your reaction? 0344 499 1000. Now, this is an ID which will affect access to public services as well as the right to work and gain accommodation, will bring reaction from across the political spectrum. Whilst some within government support this policy, an unlikely coalition of figures on the left and the right are already mounting a campaign against it, with the likes of Labour's ultra-left-wing MP, the Corbynite MP Richard Bergen, and Reform leader Nigel Farage both united in their opposition to this policy. So what do you think? 0344 499 1000. It's a story which is going to dominate the entirety of this show. I make no apologies for that because it really matters. I want to hear from you on this. And here's the question. Is this a convenient no-brainer that will make life easier and stop illegal immigration, or a sinister assault on our fundamental freedoms? Book your place on the show. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer, writing in the Daily Telegraph newspaper today, has said that Labour has previously got it wrong on immigration. So do you trust the PM to get legal numbers down to a sensible level and to stop the boats? And a bit of royal gossip. Has Prince Harry's UK return driven a wedge between King Charles and his son William? We've got the inside story, and Labour in turmoil. Could Andy Burnham transform the fortunes of this ailing Labour government if he replaces Sir Keir Starmer? And are Britain's problems largely the result of the Boris wave of mass immigration? I'll be speaking to the ex-MP who entered Parliament following Bojo's surprise landslide victory in 2019. Well, feelings are running very high in regard to this rollout of digital ID. It's my understanding that the Prime Minister is now addressing an audience in central London, explaining why this policy will be more convenient, more streamlined, more secure, and will potentially tackle illegal immigration. Teresa has texted the programme and said, "Hi Mark, I'm happy to carry a card, but against a digital card, and Tony Blair is the ventriloquist and Starmer is the dummy." Well, let's get reaction from one of my favourite journalists, columnist at The Telegraph and author of Never Again, How the West Betrayed the Jews and Itself, Jake Wallace-Simons. Jake, I want to discuss a myriad of topics with you this morning, but can I get your reaction to the news that the Prime Minister is going to roll out compulsory digital ID?
Yeah, hi, good morning. I've got three thoughts about this, really. First and foremost, I feel that it does undermine our sense of what Britain should be. We're not a country that has ever taken kindly to fascism, which is the extreme of authoritarianism. I'm not saying this is fascist, but we tend to sort of resist urges to control us from above. We want to feel that our freedoms are natural to us, our associations are free, and the government is there to enable us to lead free and prosperous lives. And I think at the moment, the government, this left-wing government, is taking those liberties too far and beginning to constrain our liberties, giving us an idea of how it thinks that we should live, and it feels like it undermines that. The second thought is that, look, the government's closing the door after this horse has bolted. We've now got a very low trust and low coherence society with high crime and we don't know who people are in society, in the black market from overseas and so on. This is largely a result of uncontrolled immigration for year after year, which hit a peak, of course, in the Boris wave of 900,000. And now the government is desperately trying to find ways to mitigate this by giving everyone an ID card, reducing our own traditions and freedoms in the name of trying to close the door after the horse is bolted. And finally, I would suggest that, you know, I've got a podcast, The Brink, and Barry Weiss was on it this week, and she said something that really stays with me. She said that we're not facing a crisis of trust in politics. We're facing a crisis of trustworthiness in politics. I don't trust our political leaders as far as I could throw them at the moment after year, decade after decade of betrayal. I don't trust them with my biometric data and with an ID card.
Well, I agree with you. By the way, that's a great booking, Barry Weiss, the US political commentator. Just dropped this morning. The Brink, that sounds like well worth a listen. I was radicalized, Jake, during COVID, okay? That's when I had my sort of wake up, sort of red pill moment, because I think that if we hadn't had COVID, I might be quite open to the idea of a digital ID. It's convenient. This is, you know, all the important information in one place. You don't have to run around looking for utility bills to prove where you live. But having seen the authoritarianism during COVID-19, the illiberal and economically ruinous lockdowns, and most concerningly, the vaccine mandates that meant you had to have this medical intervention in order to, you know, essentially function in a normal society. You know, that was like a test case for what these cards have the potential to do.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think that, I mean, you know, ID cards are common across the continent and further afield in democracies, but our British tradition is different. You know, most of the countries that have ID cards have fascism somewhere in their past. They've got that sort of flirtation with authoritarianism that in Britain we've always resisted. We've never liked that. We've always been very proud of our natural freedoms and natural rights. And, you know, this government really is doing all it can to trash our traditions and trash our our sort of way of living. This seems to be an extension of that.
Most definitely. Why do you think Starmer's doing it at this juncture? Just what is the political motivation here, given the fact that the government is experiencing historic unpopularity?
Well, he's explicitly trying to link it with stopping the boats. You know, smashing the gangs has proven to be an abject disaster. And now he's saying he wants to stop the boats by, you know, giving migrants an ID card so he can track them better. It's just pathetic. It's really pathetic. He's desperately scrabbling for some kind of legitimacy. And I've noticed that he's recently started to adopt the language of the right. He started to talk about patriotism. I mean, who is this Prime Minister to lecture us about patriotism, having done all he can throughout his adult life to undermine our values, our traditions, our history and our way of life? And yet he's a chameleon. He has no principles whatsoever. He's adopting the language that's popular at the time, and now he seems to be trying to speak like Nigel Farage in terms that previously the old Keir Starmer would have decried.
Most definitely. Let's take a listen to Robert Jenrick, if we can, because you mentioned the issue of patriotism. And Robert Jenrick has told The Sun newspaper and Kate Ferguson, the political editor of The Sun, on Sunday, that he's fed up with foreign flags around the country. Take a listen.
I think that people are sick of seeing, you know, the Gaza flag being put up, a lamppost, a Pakistan flag. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I went down the road from here in Newark and put up Union flags on lampposts for a couple of hours, and car after car, HGV drivers, van drivers were honking their horns. They were saying, good for you. People want us to feel pride in our country, and in order to do that, you have got to integrate people properly and expect that everyone who comes into our country cherishes our history and our heritage and our culture.
Should there be this ban of putting up the Palestine flag then in public buildings or in the...
Well, look, I don't want foreign flags on public buildings.
Yeah.
I don't want to see them on the streets.
Well, there you go. As a question for you, Jake Wallace-Simons, is he right that there are too many foreign flags, or was it ever thus that we could celebrate our individual nationalities as citizens of the United Kingdom?
I think the point isn't foreign flags in principle. The point is that what it's become now as part of this culture war, that we're sort of sectarian war that's facing Britain as a result of these huge numbers of immigration that we've had for year after year. You know, you mentioned my book. The subtitle of my book is How the West Betrayed the Jews and Itself. And this is a prime example of that. You've got the Gaza flag, which of course is to Jews, it makes us feel uneasy. It's on the Palestine flag because it's become a proxy for Hamas, frankly, in this war against Israel. And you've got it it overtaking the British flag. You ask those people who are putting up the Palestine flag what they think of Britain, what they think of the West. I think you will find some negative responses. What we need is a cultural renewal in this country where we can find out, remember who we are and restore that. Even Keir Starmer's been trying to talk about that in his kind of mealy-mouthed kind of way, but we need a proper restoration, and that will involve faith, flag and family coming back in a way that's not chauvinist, that's not offensive, that's just us. It's British. We need that back again. That's a big project. It involves bringing immigration down, of course, integration. It involves banning extremists. But flag is part of that. You know, our flag needs to be a modest assertion of patriotism, not a sectarian weapon against the Palestine flag. It needs to be something that brings us all together in a way that is British, that reinforces our sense of self, which we've lost under successive governments in recent decades.
Most definitely. Before I let you go, Jake, first of all, the book is out next week, Never Again, How the West Betrayed the Jews and Itself. Why is the battle, the fight upon which Israel is embarked against Hamas right now, a battle for anyone that appreciates freedom?
Well, you know, Hamas is an outcrop of the Muslim Brotherhood. Al-Qaeda is derived from the Muslim Brotherhood. The Islamic State comes from the Muslim Brotherhood. Even the Iranian regime stems ideologically in some ways from the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is banned all over the Middle East by countries like the UAE, Bahrain, Egypt, Jordan. But the Muslim Brotherhood is active here in our societies. One of its headquarters, main global headquarters, is in Britain. It dominates Muslim communities up and down Britain, radicalizing their mosques, preventing them from integrating, influencing their views to be extreme and to oppose Britain and the West. The Muslim Brotherhood is a threat for us. It seeks a generational change to take over this country, impose Sharia law, and will resort to jihad if necessary. It raises money here and filters it through a series of shell companies and so on to Hamas in Gaza. What I'm saying is, it's all part of one problem. Hamas want to kill Jews first and foremost, but they're part of a greater ideology that spans the West and the globe, that wants to kill us too. The Manchester bomber, Salman Abedi, who blew up those 22 people in 2017 in Manchester, he was part of the same ideology that powers Hamas today. It's one fight. Israel knows who the enemy is and is fighting it. Unfortunately, in Britain, as Keir Starmer showed in recognising a Palestinian state without preconditions just the other day, we have forgotten how to call the enemy the enemy. We have forgotten how to call our friends and allies our friends and allies because we have forgotten who we are. We've got to wake up and understand that once again before it's too late.
Most definitely. Before I let you go, Jake, briefly, if you can, the terrorism case against kneecap rapper Liam O'Hanna has been thrown out following a technical error in the way that the charge against him was brought. The 27-year-old, who performs under the stage name of Mo Chara, was accused of displaying a flag in support of prescribed terror organisation Hezbollah at a gig at the O2 Forum in Kentish Town, North London, in November. It's been thrown out. In his judgment, Mr. Goldspring said these proceedings were instituted unlawfully and are null. Your reaction?
I think it just shows how broken Britain has become, frankly. You know, we shouldn't have got to a point where we've got these people having to be taken to court in the first place. That just goes to show how broken our society is, how it's become dominated by this radicalism, Islamist radicalism, progressive radicalism, combining and trying to hollow us out and take us down from within. That's the first problem. We shouldn't have allowed that to happen. That's because we've forgotten who we are. But the other problem is that our justice system has become broken as well, in that it's become the playground of activist lawyers, activist human rights activists who are able to use the law to undermine everything that we're trying to do to keep our citizens safe and keep Britain free. And these are serious problems that we see playing out in our courts at the moment. And the kneecap ruling, which is very unfortunate, which will just cause people to be in jubilation. All the wrong people are going to be in jubilation today, I think is a sign of the times.
Jake, really good to see you. Jake Wallace-Simons is a columnist at The Telegraph, and his brand new book, Never Again, How the West Betrayed the Jews and Itself, is out next week and will certainly be a must read. Well, the Prime Minister is currently addressing an audience in central London, and he's rolling out a compulsory digital ID. Well, let me tell you that I was sitting in this studio 4 years ago when mask mandates were instituted, and I stood my ground, took a position. I was supported by Talk all the way, and I'm so glad that I did that, because what we had after that was months and years of tyranny. Well, here we go again with digital ID, and I'm not having it. Now, the team have actually mocked up what would be my digital ID when this is rolled out in the next couple of years, which I think you'll agree is an excellent piece of artwork. Well done to the team and their efforts on Photoshop. And I feel very strongly about this because I think that these digital IDs are illiberal, authoritarian, un-British, Orwellian and wrong, which is why I have commissioned a pair of Talk's finest scissors to cut up this disgusting, wretched, evil, creepy, totalitarian document, because my message is very clear when it comes to digital ID. No, no, no. And Sir Keir Starmer, you can take your digital ID card and you can shove it where the sun doesn't shine.
While Reform are in the ascendancy and they're ahead in the polls, Boris still has an appeal to the exact target voters that Reform are going for. Those people that perhaps voted Labour for a long time, then they voted for Brexit, then they voted for Boris in 2019. They're disappointed with the government, they're disappointed with the Tories, but Boris is the one that could, upset the Reform apple cart. So almost like sort of Van Helsing, they're sort of trying to drive a stake into Boris is down and out, but they just want to really make sure he's not coming back.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, now, folks, if you're just joining us, I bring you the sad breaking news that Lord Ming Campbell, former leader of the Liberal Democrats, has died at the age of 84. An interesting life and career. He was actually an amazing sprinter. He held the British 100-metre record, 10.2 seconds, from 1967 to 74. A great athlete, but also a great public figure and a popular and respected politician from across the political spectrum. And the leader of the Liberal Democrats, in my humble opinion, when the Lib Dems were both liberal and democratic, which in my view is not the case right now. But anyway, Lord Ming Campbell, a decent man, a fine man, who had a great career in public life. May he rest in peace. What about digital ID? Laura Jane is in Hampshire. Hi, Laura Jane.
Hi, Mark. I don't know where to start, but I'm so glad you tore up your ID because I'm not having one. If it means I can't go and buy food, I will live off whatever's in the garden here in Hampshire. I'm trying to learn to grow veg and stuff. I refuse. I'm 65. I'm much more scared for my children who are in their late 20s and early 30s, much more scared for them. This is nothing to do with illegal immigration. If you're illegal, you're going to get around the digital ID. All you've got to do is nick my phone and then you can make your picture look like, it's just wrong. And it's Marxist at its heart, and I am scared and I'm frightened, really frightened. I'm frightened also that my children don't get it. They use their phones to pay for everything. It's their, and they all say to me, but, what's the problem? Why, this is conspiracy theorist, Mum. Well, during COVID, I, like you, rebelled I never went on marches in my life until COVID. And I am really frightened. And I kid you not, yesterday when it was announced, I was out walking the dogs and I had to sit down because I was shaking like a leaf. And I'm desperate now. I really don't know what we're going to do. And I'm sorry to sound so pathetic, but I'm really frightened.
Do you think, will people power and a united political opposition to this policy see it off at the pass?
I mean, look, if I could go to a Labour conference and stand out there and do everything, I can't because I've got 4 dogs and very few hotels will take dogs, but that's another story. I don't think the Conservatives want it, but I don't see how they can oppose it because obviously they're in. And I know that Reform, but we've only got 5 MPs, and we've got to get them in for them to scrap it. But I think the young just don't get it, and so therefore for them they won't oppose it. So it'll be up to us oldies. I'm not saying you're old, but it will be up to those of us who are old who do get it. I mean, imagine I was just walking my dog with an 84-year-old local lady, and she looked at me in horror and she said, "I don't have a phone like you. What am I going to do?"
Most definitely. And what happens if you're in a city like London or Manchester or Glasgow where phones get snatched out of your hands on a daily basis, and then you need to go and get a doctor's appointment or get benefits?
Exactly.
Laura Jane, stay with me. Let's have a listen to Lisa Nandy defending the policy.
How will these digital ID cards work?
Well, one of the things that we're thinking about is whether to introduce digital ID, and we think there is some merit in this. The Prime Minister will say a bit more about this tomorrow, but we think that they offer 2 benefits. The first is that they'll be able to make sure that people are able to prove their right to be here, to work here legally very easily, which will then help us to deal with the illegal economy and stop people being undercut at work. But we also think there might be big benefits as well for citizens. If you think about the way that the NHS app has developed in recent years, and now you're much more able to do things like make GP appointments online and access your medical records, we think there may be benefits to the general population as well.
Laura, it will be convenient and quicker.
Rubbish. I'm not on the NHS app just for that reason. And no, I can't access my medical records. It took me 4.5 weeks to get them because I needed them for something, for an operation which I will have to wait for so long. And I'm finding the money to do it. And you need medical treatment. You've paid your taxes all your life, and you're having to go private to get the treatment you now need. Is that right? Yes, because the consultant told me that basically he told me the symptoms. If I get it, call an ambulance because it's life and death. It's a hernia. It's not a very big deal. But if it goes wrong and the ambulance doesn't come, I'm told I'm curtains. And so basically he said, "Oh, but by the way, I'm terribly sorry. The wait is X, Y, or Z." I mean, it's something like 9 months. We all know that'll be longer. So I could be dead before then. So, so I had to get my medical records to prove to the insurance company I've never had this before and whatever. It took me 4.5 weeks. So that's a load of rubbish. GP appointment round here, you'll be lucky. And half of the population in our villages is over the age of 75. And they don't all have smartphones.
No, they don't. Laura Jane, why do you say that digital IDs are Marxist in their in their kind of flavour. What do you mean by that?
Because the Fabian Society believes in control, and the Fabian Society is one that is still around big time in the Labour heartlands. I mean, sorry, not the voters, but and they want to control. It was Bernard Shaw who originally said about all this. The Orwellian truth is out there. It's even written on the BBC wall as you go out, warning us all about this. And it is about control. They want, I mean, what happens in Marxist countries? You can't do anything. You know, there'll come a point where I'll go into my local co-op and not be able to, because I'm going to refuse. I won't be able to buy food. I don't fly anyway because I'm frightened, but you know, my children all wanted to fly during COVID. One of them had to for work. The other one is a dancer, and he wasn't allowed to go to auditions unless he had the COVID jab. Therefore, he had to have that. Therefore, and so on and so forth. As much as, you know, so I was already, you know, I couldn't even go to the theatre to watch him. And I'm not ashamed to say that I never took one of those, whatever they were called, to test if you had COVID, and I just rigged it
PCR.
so that I could go and see my son.
It was crazy. Well, that's what woke me up, was the pandemic. That's when we got a taste of authoritarianism. But this technology will be 10 times worse.
There's so many dangers to this, even if you don't believe in what I'm talking about. The dangers, please, anyone listening out there, go and do your research. Please, please. I'm Roman Catholic. I'm going to be praying so hard. But please, out there, please understand this is really dangerous for our children and grandchildren. We'll all be dead by the time we're a Marxist society. It's very, very dangerous. And I know that Alex Phillips has already agreed about that. I don't know how far Julia goes on that. But please, everybody, fight.
It's my understanding that Julia is not having them, but of course she'll be back on Monday to express her view on that. Laura Jane, I've only got a couple of seconds. I need to get to Brian in Glasgow, but how did you accrue 4 dogs?
Accidents.
Are you one of those, you can't say no to, there's another dog and he's got a crooked back leg and you're like, oh, go on then, I'll take him?
No, Primrose had a one-night stand with a schnoodle, and so on. So now I have 4 small dogs.
Well, they're very, very lucky. Laura Jane will speak very soon. Laura Jane not happy with digital ID. Brian is in Glasgow. Top of the morning, Brian.
Top of the morning to you.
So, what do you think? Why is Starmer doing this?
Well, because he's a tool maker's son.
Nicely put.
Yes.
Why are you worried about this, Brian? Because they've said it will make our lives easier and also it will stop illegal immigration.
It's a lot of crock. What about the veterans, the homeless veterans? What are they going to do? They fought for our country. I'm a veteran myself. Fought for our country. They're homeless. What's going to happen? Oh, maybe the government will give them new phones. Then what will happen? Like this business of charging cars. What will we have? Chargers on every lamppost for the homeless to charge their mobile phones?
Yeah.
You know, the guy doesn't know squat. If he had any sense at all, he would get out and let Sir Farage in, because Farage walks up a hill where nobody has walked before. He makes his own path.
Well, I agree with you, Brian. I agree. And on that path is to say no to digital ID. One concern I've got is that once they're in, once you've got that infrastructure, a bit like income tax introduced a few hundred years ago, it'll be there forever. Brian, brilliant call. Let's speak again soon. Next up, will digital ID stop illegal immigration? I'll be asking the former head of UK Border Force next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Gary in Liverpool, Mark, the British people don't want ID cards, but the government will force them upon them. The only way it will be scrapped is if the Muslim community don't want it. Debbie is not happy with the Prime Minister. Starmer's just said you won't be able to get a job without digital ID, so the dole queues will be going up because we don't want them. Shell says, just listening to Starmer, and he stated it will be mandatory for everyone who wants to work. So not just the illegal so-and-sos, but all of us not happy there at all. And good morning, Mark. Margaret here, currently in Tunisia, just listening to Stalin, as she calls him, Starmer. What a load of nonsense. Lost count of the number of times he said working people. How the hell it's going to stop illegal immigrants getting work is beyond me. We don't know what their real names are anyway. To put it politely, they can shove their digital ID where the sun does not shine. Well, will digital ID tackle and essentially reduce illegal immigration? Let's speak to a man well qualified to answer that question. The former head of UK Border Force, Tony Smith. Hello, Tony.
Hello.
The French have been complaining for a long time that a pull factor to the UK for illegal immigrants is the ability to work. Will digital ID make it harder for them to do just that?
It may do, Mark. It's a bit early to say until we see the detail, but it certainly won't stop illegal immigration. What happens now is when people come in on a small boat and are given temporary admission into the communities, they aren't allowed to work for at least for the first 6 months of their period, but they do that. When immigration enforcement go out to raid places where they're working, they find them, but there's very little punitive action they can take because the migrants themselves are already in the asylum system, so they can't be arrested and deported. They don't have any money, so they can't really be fined. We have tried to stop support for people found working illegally. The courts have challenged that, so you can't do that either. So what we really need is an immigration enforcement system, whether or not you've got an ID card, which says that if you're found working illegally, you'll be deported from the country. At the moment, that doesn't happen. If you're arrested for working illegally, you won't be deported from the country. You'll just be put back into the backlog. There may be things that can be done about the employer, because the employer does have a statutory duty to check your credentials to make sure you have got a permission to work, and can suffer quite significant penalties if they do that. But there are quite a few get out of jail cards for the employer as well, and there is quite a big market in forged documents circulating around, which will try to bypass, if you like, those employer checks, which the employer will say, well, I'm not qualified, I didn't realise that was a false document. So the whole idea of this digital ID is not of itself going to stop illegal entry. In order to stop illegal entry, you need to detain people when they enter illegally and deport them from the territory immediately. Yeah. And that's not what we've been doing, I'm afraid, either under the last government or under this one.
Could this reduce illegal immigration from France by even a few percentage points? And if so, would that make it worthwhile?
Well, I think there are benefits more broadly to knowing who people are. In my experience, as you know, the migrants don't have any documents when they arrive here, so we don't know who they are. We lock them into an identity. We ask them for their name, date of birth, nationality, which we have to take their word for. But we do a biometric registration. We have their fingerprints, we have their photographs, we know when they entered, and we know what they told us. We do that in the visa system. We do that in the new ETA system now. So we have got quite a lot of data based on biometrics, and I am a big fan of biometrics. It's very hard to change your fingerprint and change your face, and many of us are now using biometrics, for example, unlocking mobile phones, accessing our bank records, so on and so forth. So I think biometric ID in itself will help law enforcement more broadly, and actually will help those people who want to access services and get lost in the morass of logins and government ID login codes and HMRC login codes. For those that want to, would have a single unique identifier which would help them access those services. But the main purpose of this is to stop illegal working. In order to stop illegal working, you've got to stop the migrants getting into the workplace in the first place, and that means detaining them on arrival and not admitting them to the asylum system, not accepting applications to stay under the Torture Convention or the Human Rights Convention, and removing them directly to the territory, either to France or to some other third country if we can, or to their source country. We really must get back to focusing on removal. So identity is a part of it. I think it will help, but it's certainly not a panacea.
Stay with us if you can, Tony. We've got Chris in Bolton. Chris, what's your view on this?
Looking at it from a practical point, the digital ID will make dibbly squad to stopping migrants working illegally. Just look at the places they work at. They don't work at Marks and Spencer's or Lloyd's Bank. They work in a backstreet takeaways and car washes. Yeah. They will get paid in cash. The amount of cash, and I'm qualified in bookkeeping, by the way, the amount of cash they get paid will be so minute that those companies will just probably put it down as sundry expenses. So it won't, and because with such small amounts, anyone looking at the books will probably not even notice. That's how they'll get around that. Does Keir Starmer really think that these companies like Uber and all the rest of them, do they really think that they're going to suddenly ask for ID? Of course they won't. Nothing will change. This is just Starmer gaslighting us to make us believe that he's getting on top of illegal immigration. It's nothing of the sort. It's just sound bites. It will do nothing at all to stop illegal immigration. This is a man who is incompetent. He can't stop the boats. He knows he can't stop the boats, so he's doing this to try and make us all think, oh, aren't Labour wonderful? They're getting on top of the situation. Nothing at all.
Thank you very much for that call, Chris. Tony, is this policy political cover for Sir Keir Starmer, given his failures to, and I quote, smash the gangs?
Well, I think what's happened is he's listened to Tony Blair and what Blair was saying back in the noughties. I was in the Home Office in those days, and we were preparing actually to introduce a national ID register in 2008, 2009 in the UK Border Agency. We were gearing up to have everybody seen by an official, where your biometrics would be captured, you would be put on that register. Of course, that was cancelled when the coalition government came in 2010 with the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives, and it's now being resurrected as part of that plan. So I think they have listened to what Blair had to say, but I think Labour have admitted themselves that actually they made, as have the Conservatives, have made a number of errors, haven't they, over the last 20, 25 years on immigration, and particularly on illegal immigration. I think this has now become the top topic. And as I say, although digital ID, I think, may help in some areas of government management, it's not going to work unless you have that removals deterrent. So the people we're talking about, I mean, the enforcement teams do go into these places that your caller was talking about regularly to check. The employer does have an obligation already under current law to make sure you have a right to work. That will either be by presentation of an ARC card or some other form of identity, and they are obliged to keep records to show they've done that, and they can be fined quite a lot of money if they don't. So the penalties are there already for the employers, but the disincentive for the worker is not there. We need to disincentivize the workers from doing it by saying, if you are caught working illegally in this country, that is a breach of the contract under which you were admitted, you will now be detained and removed from the territory. And we can't do that while we're still wrapped up in this morass of international conventions on asylum, human rights and torture convention, because as soon as they get to the police station, then their lawyer will lodge an application to see if that's not already in the process, to say you can't remove him. He fears persecution or whatever breach of his human rights for if you arrest and deport him, and he goes back in. Now, when that message goes back to Calais and beyond, the answer is, well, you can come in here. You might get caught for working illegally, and your employer might get done for it, but don't worry, nothing's going to happen to you. That is the fundamental problem they've got to fix. We've got to start getting back to the mode where when you find an illegal worker in the community, the immigration officer has the power to arrest you, detain you, keep you detained, and remove you from the country, because that is a breach of conditions. And I'm afraid, Mark, until we fix that, no matter what we do with digital ID, that's not going to stop disincentivize illegal crossings.
Tony, briefly, if you can, if we get a new administration in 3 or 4 years' time and we exit the ECHR, tear up the Human Rights Act, look at the Refugee Convention, pull every lever that's available, can we stop the boats?
Yes.
Wow.
And you can see, Mark, that's happening in America. I was on a talk show last night in America with what's going on under, Tom Homan, and so there is evidence that yes, you can if you are really robust about your legal frameworks. But we need a really radical approach to our legal frameworks, and I'm afraid I haven't seen anything so far from anyone in government to deliver that.
No, that's politically difficult, isn't it, for the Prime Minister? Tony, stay with us. We've got actually the Prime Minister speaking about the rollout of mandatory digital ID. Take a listen.
This government will make a new free of charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that.
Here's another concern I've got, Tony. If some illegal immigrants can't work because of this infrastructure and technology, will they turn to crime?
Yes, I'm afraid there is a very clear evidence, Mark, already of links between irregular migration and crime. Some of them have been trafficked into the country. They are in bonded slavery. They owe the people that brought them across. They will be involved in all kinds of crime, be that prostitution, unskilled labour. Obviously, we have had a very significant rise in crime from certain nationality cohorts who recognise the opportunities of getting here for criminal purposes and the proceeds of that. Illegal immigration is a very profitable business for international organised crime in the same way as drug smuggling or any other form of smuggling is. So there is always going to be a risk that we have created a black economy here where people are actually disappearing into our communities, creating mischief. But even then, Mark, comes back to the same point. If you commit a criminal offence in this country and you're in the asylum system, you should be deported, right?
Most definitely. That would be common sense.
That doesn't happen. You go to court, Mark, and you can say this, but you might be able to get a prosecution, but that does not automatically mean removal. If you're claiming asylum or human rights, you can't send me back to Syria, Eritrea, Afghanistan, Iran, because that breaches Article 3 of the ECHR, then we won't be able to remove you anyway. And so the punishment has to be deportation. We need to get to a situation where criminals, as well as illegal workers, overstayers, are arrested, detained and deported. That used to happen, Mark. When I was an immigration officer back in the 70s and the 80s, I was empowered to do exactly that. What happened in the late 80s, 90s, all these magic words, human rights, asylum, torture convention, started creeping in to the vocabulary to the point where we haven't got control over our borders anymore, because it's been taken over by this raft of international legislation and human rights rights, which means that we know full well, our officers know full well, that much as we would like to arrest and deport people, we'll end up arresting people, but we will end up putting them back into the pile because we simply can't remove them.
Let's have a bonfire of all of it. Tony, a privilege to have you on the show. Tony Smith is the former head of UK Border Force. Could digital ID be Keir Starmer's poll tax moment? Could it bring down his premiership? That's next.
Like it, you will get honesty, you will get authenticity, and if we get our way, you might even be able to cram it at the top. 3-tier World of Common Sense with Mike Graham
and Jeremy Kyle
in that order.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Ellie in Shropshire. Mark, we've lived in a diverse country for decades, no real problems. It's governments that cause division. I'm afraid they're making more people become racist. Soon we'll want to ban all mosques, Sharia law, the Quran, etc. This is Great Britain. Get with the programme or go away. That's a polite paraphrasing of what Ellie had to say. Ellie, thank you for that. How about this from Russ? Mark, the migrants don't have phones when they arrive, or some will. Are we going to give them all smartphones so they can have digital ID? And Liz says, regarding digital ID, good morning, Mark. No way will I have it. If I'm committing a crime by not having one, so be it. Liz in Southampton. Let's now talk about something that's rather stately and rather significant too. And it's the royal family. And is there a growing rift now between King Charles and his son, Prince William, following the Clarence House summit between Harry and Charles earlier this month? Who better to ask than the doyen of royal journalism and Harry's biographer, Angela Levin. Hello, Angela. It's been far too long. How are you?
Hello. Lovely to see you. Yes.
It's lovely to see you. Are we to believe reports that there is a tension between Charles and his eldest son, William, at the moment?
Absolutely not. I've been tearing my hair out, actually. It was much longer, been pulling it out, because I think this is all set up. And I can explain exactly what I think. And I'm quite good. I know about Harry very well, and I know about Meghan. And I think the thing is a plan. They have tried very, very hard to get William down, and of course his wife, because they know she's ill and they can attack and attack. And Meghan's wearing similar clothes, similar hairdo, similar everything, because that's not to say I think what you're doing is so wonderful. It is to say, I know you're going to hate this, that I'm copying you. And I think it's gone on for a very long time. It hasn't worked, so now they've gone a step up. And Harry, I could tell from when he was here for the week that he was acting. He was Mr. Jolly, he was young, he was fun, everything. He wanted to be fun so that everyone would think that William was a really boring fellow. And so what are they doing is actually trying to get Meghan to be queen. That's what it is. Harry thinks that if he really carries on nagging, he will have to take over from William one way or another. We won't go to the real dark place. And that means Meghan can be queen. He once went to the Queen himself, Harry, the late Queen, and said that it was not right that Catherine was doing so much work and in front of Meghan, because Meghan is self-made and she should be the one who deals with everything at a high level. And I remember that all the time. And this is it. This is happening now. Newspapers wouldn't suddenly all say, William's terrible, he's not working, he's different. Why are they getting a new house? Why are they doing this and that? And it's all come together and it's deeply upsetting. But that's it. I mean, today we have Rebecca English, the royal editor of the Mail, who is terrific. And she said it's nonsense. They have an argument as to, so do sons and fathers, but there's absolutely nothing that says that they're not getting on in a normal way. And as we know that William went up to have a chat to his father. This is the 3rd year he's done that, so they can talk about things. They'll talk about Harry. I think that because the king is not so well and he hasn't seen Harry since February 2024, he wants to love him. And any father would want to love their son, but he is being vile, absolutely vile. He didn't apologise because immediately after he came out seeing his father for half an hour, he went to tell the Guardian newspaper, who are not keen on the monarchy anyway, that he doesn't feel it's done anything wrong. He's absolutely fine. When anyone who looked at what their son had done for them and written in books, it's disgusting.
Well, indeed. Do you think that the Sussex PR machine are behind these negative headlines about the relationship between Charles and William?
100%, yes, because William is doing very well. The king would never attack him that way because he's been caring about a lot of the things that he cares as well, the same things about what's happening in this world, rather than cutting ribbon or rather than playing that you're a kid just like the kid you're talking to now. That's what it's all about, to be fun. But actually, the heir to the throne needs to be serious at times. He's very good with children. If you see William when he's out with people, he's smiling, he's lovely. Little boys run up to hug him and he hugs them back. But I think it's a trick. It's not just a trick, it's a plan. It's a horrible, nasty plan that they're now applying, because all the other times they've tried to be aggressive and win, they haven't done it.
They haven't. With Harry fifth in line to the throne, how logistically is it possible that he would make Meghan queen, as you suggested he'd like to?
Well, he thinks that if he gets rid of William and Catherine. I mean, William, we don't know how well Catherine will be. We hope she will stay well and looked after. But if it's too much and William really feels he can't do that, he's got to look after his children, they will all be taken away. So it's not very far off.
So the idea is he could leapfrog William's kids and become king with Meghan as his queen in a sort of constitutional, a constitutional aberration.
Yes.
And that's his hope.
It just depends what happens with the children. But I think William wouldn't want his son to be put up as a king so early, and I think he would find that he'd lost the whole feeling about his life for a long time. He might feel that this is very important for him to do. I'm not saying he will, but I think this is what is in Harry's mind, that if he goes on and on and on and on, driving them bonkers really, and ruining things, getting people to dislike them straight away. I mean, if we notice, so many papers suddenly turned on William. What's going on here? You know, he's great, he's fine, he's a wonderful heir. But if you really, really bring someone down, you can do all sorts of things.
Well, you've had Amanda Platel calling William lazy and woke and describing Catherine as half-hearted. We also had the bizarre attacks on Catherine's stunning new hairstyle.
Yeah, that's pathetic, isn't it? I think that people are doing that who don't really understand. I mean, one woman in the Telegraph said, why can't Harry do half in, half out? It's lovely, he's fun, he's full of energy and all that. But then Harry would take over. And Harry, the way he's talking even, he comes back, well, I'm going to come here 4 or 5 times, I'll see you then. He's creating it when it hasn't been created. Nothing's been arranged yet by the king or his aides to have Harry back. But he's saying he's coming back and it'll be fine. He's going to, you know, help William with all the things. William doesn't want him to help. William absolutely doesn't want him to go anywhere near him. I mean, he's the one who some time ago said that he wants to help bring up William's children because he doesn't want them to become like him, right? But William, although William's told me that it's not up to me, it's up to him, that's the thing I'm aiming at. I think, what are you doing here?
Powerful words. Angela, it's been too long. I look forward to catching up soon. One of the finest royal journalists in the country, Prince Harry's biographer, of course, the remarkable Angela Levin. Well, what do you think? Queen Meghan. Be afraid, be very afraid. Next up, Labour in turmoil. Is Andy Burnham the answer? Plus, has Boris Johnson been thrown under the bus in regard to mass immigration and the Boris wave? I'll be speaking to the ex-MP who entered Parliament following Bojo's surprise landslide victory in 2019. So, Boris under the spotlight, plus more on digital ID. Is this Starmer's poll tax? A big hour to come. Don't go anywhere.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan, in for the brilliant Alex Phillips. This is Talk, the home of common sense. A big hour to come. Now, earlier in today's Dolan's Dispatch, I said that digital ID is the path to tyranny and the road to hell. As the Prime Minister rolls out this compulsory identification platform, which will affect access to public services as well as the right to work and gain accommodation, will bring reaction from across the political spectrum. Some very unlikely people united in their anger about this new policy, including the Corbynite Labour MP Richard Bergen and the leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage, no less. Nearly said the leader of Farage, but it sort of is true. That's a Freudian slip. Farage UK. But most importantly, what do you think? 03444991000. It's a story which is going to dominate the next hour. Is this a convenient no-brainer that will make life easier and stop illegal immigration, or a sinister assault on our fundamental freedoms? And are Britain's problems largely the result of the Boris wave of mass immigration? I'll be speaking to the ex-MP who entered Parliament following Bojo's surprise landslide victory in 2019. Is all of this Boris's fault, or has he been thrown under the bus? And Labour in turmoil. Could Andy Burnham transform the fortunes of this ailing Labour administration if he replaces Sir Keir Starmer? Well, let's get the views of Sasha Lord, who is a former Labour Party donor, and Andy Burnham's former nighttime economy advisor for Greater Manchester. Hello, Sasha.
Good afternoon, Mark.
What do you make about this psychodrama within the Labour Party at the moment?
Do you know what, this whole digital ID thing today, I'm convinced this is just a dead cat that they've thrown in. I mean, everybody up until that announcement were talking about £740,000 of undeclared donations. Sir Keir's head of comms resigning just before conference, and his weak leadership. You know, is there going to be a leadership battle? All of a sudden, that's off the table now, and everybody's talking about digital ID. I mean, the idea to me personally is really bizarre, Mark. I've got a national insurance card, I've got my passport, I've got my credit cards, my driving licence, my bank accounts, utility bills. What's this needed for? And as an employer, I won't be expecting to ask people for digital ID. I just think it's nonsense.
Indeed, and you were a very vocal critic of some of the authoritarian measures we saw during the pandemic. And you just wonder whether digital ID feels like essentially a natural extension of what we saw during COVID.
It does. You know, it doesn't feel right to me. And you're right. I was the person that took Matt Hancock to court to get rid of the 10 p.m. curfew, and
which made no sense.
None whatsoever. And the Scotch egg rule, the ridiculous Scotch egg rule. I mean, the whole thing, when you look back now, what we were doing for 18 months, I have no idea. But, you know, here we are again with something that to me just doesn't make sense. You know, I am not a fan of this Brit card or whatever they want to call it.
No, and it does look to be politically motivated, particularly the timing. You were understandably very unhappy with the performance of the last Conservative government, and I would say the majority of my viewers and listeners would agree with you on that, Sasha. However, you were very enthusiastic about the idea of a Labour government. I think you attended the manifesto launch. Do you now have buyer's regret?
I do, as it stands, actually. I am a Labour Party member. I was a Labour Party donor, and that was on the back, Mark, of me having many conversations with who were the shadow cabinet at the time. Right at the top, I met Sir Keir, I met Rachel Reeves, and my industry is hospitality. We're the 5th biggest industry in the whole of the UK, the 3rd largest employer. And it's very apparent to me now, they were telling me things that they thought I wanted to hear, and they haven't followed through with anything. I mean, Rachel Reeves increasing national insurance for my sector was the final nail in the coffin. We're losing now a pub a day. And because we're being taxed so heavily, the profit now, Mark, on a pint, on an average pint that's £6.50 or £8 I'm hearing in London now, the profit is 12p. I mean, it is untenable. It's ridiculous.
People don't realise that's how little the landlord or landlady gets. I think one of the more egregious aspects of the Nix tax raid, Sasha, as well, is that hospitality employs a lot of young people. So that is a lot of school leavers who now won't be able to get a job in the local restaurant or the local pub because the employers can't afford it.
You're absolutely right. Since Rachel Reeves' last budget, hospitality has lost 110,000 jobs, more than any other sector. And I was at the Labour Party conference 2 years ago, and I can tell you, everybody felt you're on a wave. You know, it was like something new. There was a knight in shining armour about to arrive on the back of the disastrous 14 years of the previous government. And what a flop. What an absolute flop it's been. And I put a tweet out on Tuesday saying how annoyed I was with the party and I'm not going to the conference and what's the point of it. And the amount of Labour Party members and especially Labour Party councillors who are undoubtedly going to lose their jobs at the local elections come May the 6th, they reached out to me and said, you know, thanks for being the voice of reason, for saying what we want to say, but we just can't do.
Is this a problem of policy or leadership, Sasha?
I put this down to leadership and whoever is advising the leader as well. I mean, the biggest thing they came out with when they first created this government was we're going to freeze the pensioners. And I fell off my seat. You know, that is not the Labour Party that I grew up as a kid to understand. It really isn't. So, you know, they've made so many poor, disastrous policy decisions, and they are admitting now that they've got things wrong in the last 12 months. You know, it's time to move on.
Can they, you know, defend the challenging 14 months they've had, given the economic circumstances which are not of their making?
Well, when the Labour Party came in, they said that the black hole was 22 billion. We're now at 50 billion, apparently. And I've got to be honest, Mark, I am so fearful for my sector. And the next budget that's due, I think it's the 26th of November, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
You know, I'm really, really concerned what's coming down the line there.
If there's an issue around the leadership, is a change at the top the answer? Could it be that your former colleague and friend Andy Burnham could rescue the fortunes of this government?
Well, you know, I've been asked this question a lot this week, and obviously I can't speak on behalf of Andy Burnham, but what I can say is this. Look, you will have met many politicians, Mark, over the years, more than I will have met. And a lot of them, let's be honest, are different people once they're off the camera.
Yeah.
Andy Burnham I worked with for 7 years, and he's exactly the same person behind the camera than he is on the camera. He really, really cares for the people of Greater Manchester. You know, what he has done, he's transformed this city region, taking transport back under public control. He's done some incredible things. So he is a leader, and we called him during the COVID period King of the North when he stood up for us when we were thrown into Tier 3 for longer than any other region. And he defended the city region, and the country needs leadership like that.
That sounds like an endorsement to me.
Well, there are many hurdles to get through, but obviously Andy Burnham's not an MP at the moment, Mark, as you know, so he'd have to step down from his role as Mayor for Greater Manchester, and he'd have to run as an MP. So there's a long way to go.
OK, well, listen, breaking news, you heard it here first. Former Labour Party donor and supporter Sasha Lord, warm on the idea of Sir Keir Starmer being replaced by Andy Burnham, but as he said, he'd have to find a seat, he'd have to win that, which might be a challenge for this incumbent government. Sasha, let's take a listen to the Prime Minister talking about his wider hopes for the country.
There's a battle for the soul of this country now as to what sort of country do we want to be, because that toxic divide, that decline with reform, it's built on a sense of grievance politics, identifying something real for sure, but relying on the problem existing in order for their politics to persist.
We know, Sasha Law, don't we, that the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is an ambitious man and he's a ruthless man. Can he adapt to the current political circumstances? Can he turn this ship around?
I don't think so. And you say ruthless, Mark. Well, you know, one of my biggest idols actually was Alex Ferguson. I'm sorry to go into football on this, but
do it. Knock yourself out. He's a hero. He's
an absolute hero. But I can tell you, Fergie would walk into the training ground and he knew the name of absolutely everybody in there. The dinner ladies, the cleaners. Yes. He'd spend time with them. I know, because I've been told by two separate people, that when Sir Keir sacked people a couple of weeks ago, he didn't even have the leadership to phone them up himself. He got other people to do it. I think that's weak leadership. I really do. And just then you play that video. I mean, he doesn't really. He's so cardboard, isn't he? He just doesn't really speak for the people. I just cannot warm to him, and I thought I would do.
And before I let you go, Sasha, what do you make of Nigel Farage and the Reform UK project? Of course, you are based in Greater Manchester, and just north of that region is the Red Wall, which looks like it's going to go turquoise in 3 or 4 years' time.
Well, I think a lot quicker than that, to be honest, Mark. I think the 6th of May, we're going to see Reform take a lot of seats across the whole of the UK, not just Greater Manchester, not just the north. I think, you know, we've seen that in the polls today. If there's to be a general election, who would become Prime Minister. I'm happy to work with everybody. You know, I am a Labour Party member and I still want to work with the Labour Party. But I was invited to speak at the Lib Dems conference. I'm speaking at the Tory conference next week. I will work with anybody who looks after, represents and gives a voice at the table for hospitality.
More power to you. Sasha, I really enjoyed our conversation today. Sasha Lord is a former Labour Party donor and Andy Burnham's former nighttime economy advisor for Greater Manchester and noble champion of the hospitality cause. And as the son of a pub landlord myself, it's something about which I feel very passionately. He mentioned 100,000 jobs in hospitality have disappeared since the October budget. Many of those, perhaps the majority, will be young people, 17, 18, 19-year-olds, who surely should be at the front of the queue for employment in this country, but thanks to Labour are now at the back of it. Steve is in Scunthorpe. How are you, Steve?
I'm fine, thank you.
How's your day going? What's happening in Scunthorpe as we speak?
Well, it's nice and sunny at the moment.
Oh, lucky you. I'm in the capital and it's overcast and gloomy, a bit like the political mood. What's on your mind, Steve?
Well, I can't see the idea of this ID. I mean, we know who needs to not be in the country. We know who shouldn't be here. And sort that out first.
Well, that's a good point, Steve. In a sense, with the mandatory digital ID, we're punishing the citizens of this country who do follow the rules and who do pay their taxes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind ID. I don't mind having something that I can show somebody. I mean, there's always going to be people who fake them and that. But if you've got an ID, but a digital ID where they can control your banks, everything, I mean, no.
Yeah, and of course that wouldn't happen overnight, would it, Steve? But my concern is that once the technology is out there and available, a future administration could leverage the digital ID for more control. Isn't that the problem?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've just read a thing that in the paper a couple of days ago that the tax man is going to be able to just take money out of your bank account. Now, whether that's true or not, or whether that's, I don't know. But my son's got a tax bill and it's not right. So if they say, oh, well, we want the money, you owe us this, we're going to take it, you've then got to fight to get it back.
Yes, there is talk that HMRC could unilaterally withdraw funds, I think under exceptional circumstances. But there's a theme emerging here, Steve, isn't there, of state overreach?
That's right, exactly. And I don't think we should put up with it.
Steve, enjoy the sunshine in Scunthorpe. Really enjoyed the call. Thank you very much. Call me again soon, Steve. Fascinating remarks that Steve had to make. I can't disagree. This is Kelvin on digital ID via a voice note. Hello, Kelvin.
You're right about them digital ID cards. If they are being brought in to stop migrants and that, then why aren't they the ones that are targeted with them? Why is it the rest of the nation? Again, we are punished again for migrants. And what they should do with them is, if they're not working, they should force them into work and make them work. If they want to move, they should help pay for them, not the rest of us. That's my view.
Will digital ID tackle crime more generally? Will it make the streets of Britain safer? I'll be asking a former top cop next.
Banks have lots of details, the government already have lots of details, the NHS already have lots of details. If this is just one extra thing that the government can have in their armoury to try and solve illegal migration, they are going to go for it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots of you really concerned about digital ID. Peter says, good morning, Mark. Phil from Hertfordshire here. So does that mean that the national insurance number is now going to be null and void? We don't need them anymore, perhaps? How about this from Tanya? Hi, Mark. I've taken a sabbatical and I'm ready to get back to work. I refuse to get this Brit card, so my only option will be to go on benefits. This will be an unmitigated disaster and will cost billions. Steve, hi, Mark. So let me get this right. This government wants to get people off benefits and into work, but you won't be able to work unless you have a digital ID. So those on benefits will give it the big two fingers and stay on the handouts. Simple as that. Simon in Essex, hi Mark, the Starmer clip said digital ID is mandatory for work. Does this mean my company will be forced to sack me if I refuse the ID? I've got to say the pushback via the calls and the texts is very, very strong. If you support the policy, give me a call because it's all about opinions. 0344 499 1000. Breaking news for you. The Electoral Commission have said that they will not reopen their investigation into Morgan McSweeney, who of course is Sir Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff, over the Labour Together donations scandal. They said it found no evidence of any other potential offences. So that's one particular headache that Sir Keir Starmer may now not have to worry about. But let's now talk about the wider issue of crime in this country. Could digital ID make the streets of Britain safer and tackle all sorts of crime, not just illegal immigration? Who better to ask than the legendary former Met Police detective Peter Bleksley. Hello, Peter.
Good afternoon.
Peter, we would have an accurate profile of every citizen in the country, whether they're allowed to be here, whether they can work, what benefits they're on, what's not to like.
Mr. Dolan, that's a sweeping assumption. I think the forgers are probably rubbing their hands together with glee now because a huge new work opportunity has opened up for them. Of course, wherever there is identification demanded, people work around it. They simply create false identities or they share identities and so on and so forth. If you go to the construction industry, for example, if you go to the minicab industry, you will find people in their droves working on false identity documents and papers. It's not going to be a panacea. It's not cure-all. And there's only any point in having an ID system if you empower to see it. That will be in the detail. It will be very, very interesting.
Now, we're just having a little bit of a trouble with the line. Peter, we just lost you there, your words of wisdom for a second. But your headline is that these digital IDs won't make us safer necessarily. Wouldn't cops quite like to know someone's background when they arrest them?
Yes, they certainly would. And fingerprints and DNA often give you the details of somebody's criminal background when they are taken. However, I don't want to live in a country whereby the police would be empowered to demand ID simply because they had that power. Yeah. I think they became very authoritarian during COVID, and I wouldn't want to see us sliding further down that slippery slope.
Completely agree with you. Now, Peter, in other news, a group of girls, some as young as 14, have been causing chaos on the high street, smashing shop windows, looting goods and intimidating staff. The teens have been caught on CCTV, starting fires and issuing death threats to shop workers. In one chilling incident, a girl mocked a store owner, declaring the police won't do anything to protect you. Now, what is happening within our society that these crimes are occurring on a daily basis?
Well, a major cause of this is because our police services have deliberately morphed themselves into social services rather than crime-fighting forces. If you listen to the police officers that have been dealing with this, they've said to the media, these are children. We have to bear in mind these are children. Yes, they might be children, but they are children that are breaking the law. Simply arrest them, gather the evidence, put it forward to the CPS, and hopefully they will be charged, and they can leave it to others to deal with the punishments.
Now, I agree with you about having tougher law enforcement and a stronger judiciary. You've got two options with the prevention of crime, haven't you? Carrot and stick. You know, you can incentivise good behaviour, or you've got the stick, which is, you know, tough policing and long jail sentences, stop and search, all the rest of it. But setting that to one side, Peter, is there a wider malaise within our society where young people are just more violent and more dangerous, notwithstanding the weak policing that we've got? I've got to say that was such a good question that it's silenced, Peter. I'm very, very lucky with my interrogatory spills. He couldn't reply. That's how. No, I'm afraid his broadband went down. But let me know what you think. Is our society unravelling? Because yes, we've got weak policing and all the rest of it, but what's happening to younger generations that they are so feral, so lawless, so dangerous, so cruel, so heartless, so wicked? What is happening in our society? Is this a spiritual issue? 0344 499 1000. ID cards. Andrew is in Hertfordshire. Hello, Andrew. Now, Andrew, we got this rollout of mandatory ID cards. We're being told that it will make life very convenient and streamlined, a one-shop stop for all of your different bits of information in one place. Surely that's a good thing.
Yeah, Mark, just support this. You, Julia, the whole of the media, you were focused on the good thing, which was McSweeney and the money that he has embezzled and used in the wrong way. And the Labour Party, they just did exactly what the Liberal Democrats do with Europe and the Conservative Party do with national service. They seize the agenda. Just support it. It'll never happen. If it had been scoped, delivered and designed today now, you couldn't implement it because of the legal challenges. It'll never happen. The only way you could incentivize the population to do it is to say you will pay 5% less tax and you'll go to the front of any NHS queue if you take an ID card.
So, Andrew, you're telling me that this policy is DOA, dead on arrival.
Oh, 100, and you know too. Listen, have you any idea how you would scope this out from an infrastructure IT point of view? It's not one computer. It would be an amazing computer setup from a server point of view, but you'd have to replicate it and it'd have to fall over and have disaster recovery. It would cost billions, and then the upside is what's the availability you want? 999.9% availability. You couldn't. The cost of it is off the scale.
Money we don't have. Andrew, thank you very much for your call. Words of wisdom there. I can't disagree. Kevin is in Dorset. Kevin, do you agree with Andrew? Digital ID, it ain't going to happen. It's a non-starter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I used to work in education to do with their data formats, linking it into Capita. I've worked in databasing, just even with mail-outs and things. I've worked in identifying fraud, and all those mixed together. You're looking at computer systems, as the other gentleman said, which has got to be absolutely rocket powered. It's enormous. We used to do data just for a school, and it would fall flat on its face because of the way the systems were implemented. The equipment was not up to date. That's just in a very small local area. You try and take all the different databases across it. Well, we used to do biometrics as well. And I was interviewed for one of the jobs for biometrics for the passport control, the 240-point face recognition. The years and years of development that would be needed to put this into place, and then it still wouldn't work because all the fraud that comes into place will overtake it. And then you've got the point that it's going to be broken because it will be hacked. Anything digitally can be hacked.
Yeah.
We already have massive problems with data leaks from just the people who were coming back from Afghan. There was an announcement of that. Then a while back, it was the police force that had a data leak. You're just looking to form a system that is broken before it started, and this is all a distraction to make people think that we can sort the migrants out. They don't even know where they are. So how the hell can they get their ID and give them an ID card? Even if it did work.
Most definitely. And of course, you've got the other issue, Kevin, you mentioned about the hackers. If companies of the scale of Marks and Spencer and Jaguar Land Rover can't prevent a data breach or hackers, then I doubt the British government can.
Yeah, and we've got British ministers who leave attaché cases in boots, don't we? Remember?
I remember that well.
Cases on trains years ago. I remember that one too. And also, I had direct contact, and this just to give you an example of I was on a train ride on the way back from London, and I was chatting to a guy one day, and he worked for the National Statistics Office. This is back 15 years ago. I had a chat with him. I said, tell me, what's the population of Britain? I said, because the average people think it's around about 68 million, 69 million. He said, no, it's around about, well, the government want you to think it's about 69, but it's around about 76 million. This is 15, 20 years ago, approximately. He said, but the real number on the street, he said, it's the high 70s. So if it was that then...
It's devastating, isn't it? And just before I let you go, Kevin, the cost. I mean, we are talking billions here, billions that Rachel Reeves claims that she hasn't got.
Well, billions. Bearing in mind we borrowed 80 billion. Was it last month?
18 billion. Yeah.
Our country, Keir Starmer, is deliberately making our country bankrupt. And if people don't realise that, look at the bigger picture. Don't look at what hand's waving in front of you. Look at what's not waving in front of you. It's the oldest trick in the book. Distraction, distraction, distraction while something else goes on. Hence what went on while COVID happened, everything being done in the background.
Why would the Prime Minister willfully destroy the economy, though? Surely would that be against his best interests, Kevin?
Not when you possibly... And no one's going to particularly like this comment I'm going to make. But if you really, really understand world history and societies that rule behind the scenes and the elites which Trump mentioned, the globalist control, there is stuff going on that people don't even want to talk about, and people are being made quiet about. There's an ex-police officer who wanted to release information. He's been threatened and everything. That all links in with what Tommy Robinson had on his telephone about information, which is backed up by another MP who knows about that information. They daren't mention names on it because they'll be on a hit list. This is skyrockets out of just everyone's already... And this isn't conspiracy. You only have to have a picture to join the dots. It's like having one of those police investigations where you start off small and you start investigating. You have these little dots in pictures, people, and you link them across the board. And you start linking situations that are happening around the globe. Who makes money when there's wars? Military manufacturers, people who have investments. You could go on.
Who makes money from ill health? The pharmaceutical companies. Who is responsible for our ill health? The food companies. It goes on, doesn't it? Kevin, briefly, because the clock's against me. Some have suggested, and I heard this earlier actually on Talk, that a suggestion that what you've had with open borders and illegal immigration is the creation of the problem so that a solution can then be introduced, which would be digital ID. Is that far-fetched?
That's just one of it. It's even bigger than that because this country is having a takeover. And if the British people don't stand up quick enough, we won't have a Christian country anymore. Wake up, everybody, smell the coffee. It's nothing to do with race. It's nothing to do with lots of things. It's all planned to happen against our rights, our Magna Carta, which Keir Starmer said just a short while ago. Oh, we don't need the Magna Carta anymore. Just a few points of it. Who the hell is he to decide what we can have out of the Magna Carta?
Kevin, what a powerful call. Thank you very much for sharing your views, Kevin in Dorset. Here's the thing about Talk. It is a broad church and all opinions are welcome. And Kevin is entitled to his. And many people would call Kevin wide of the mark or maybe indulging in conspiracy theories. The bottom line is that on this show and on this channel, we're going to talk about it. And you can express your view. And if you agree with Kevin or disagree, then 03444991000 is what we do. I will say, as a matter of point of order, that I doubt that Sir Keir Starmer is willfully destroying the economy. I don't think that Kevin's got the evidence for that. I don't see why he would. But Kevin is entitled to his view. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know. But next up, could anger around digital ID bring down Sir Keir Starmer's premiership? That's next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This from Grant in Croydon. If you got rid of cash, you'd get rid of illegals working, but we're not. That's not going to happen. So what the government should do is make it law that the customer has the right to pay by cash or card to stop all these cash shops. Where's the money going? Who do they pay? If you pay someone in cash, they get universal credit. It's obvious because there is no traceability. Well, you raise a really interesting point, Grant. Once we have the mandatory ID, the digital ID, is the death of cash next? Will we lose cash? And that's another conversation. But let's have a word with Thomas in Derbyshire on digital ID. Hello, Thomas.
It's Trevor, I believe.
Trevor, can I apologise for misnaming you, misgendering you? Listen, that's fine.
Oh dear, don't do that.
No, I won't. Listen, what do you think about this? Many people are arguing it'll be very convenient. You've got all your documentation in one place, your benefits, your health records, your national insurance, your self-assessment, you know, a one-stop shop for all of your logistics in life. Isn't that a good thing?
Well, I've got most of those things already. I carry the NHS app on my phone only because I have to renew my meds every month, and there's no other way of doing it nowadays. You can't ring the receptionist; she won't help you out. I do have a card as a driving licence. I have one for a bus pass. They've got enough of my details on, and I do have to show them now and again, you know, to prove who I am when I'm trying to buy something with my debit card. So we've got those things already. But my point in this was, I heard someone earlier say we've never had them in this country. We have. Back in 1939, everyone in the country was issued a paper ID card. You had to produce it on demand, whether it was for a policeman asked you to do it, or whether you was trying to get your rations with your ration book. You had to produce it. And it was mainly because with evacuation of the big cities, people were spread all over the country, and the government thought it was a good idea to know where everyone was and who they were. They were so easily forgeable. They was ridiculous, really. But they should have been phased out in 1945. Now, no one under 40 will know this because we don't teach British history in this country anymore.
No.
But the Labour government typically kept them in until 1950s. They were finished in 52. Blair wanted to bring them back, another Labour leader. They just love it. They love the authoritarianism. And Starmer's other. Basically, it's a Stalinist project. It's authoritarian. And the left really are Stalinists. They call us Nazis. They call us fascists. We should call them what they are. They are Stalinists, authoritarian Stalinists. And we should label them as such.
Well, Hilton has messaged in, Trevor, and he said what Starmer has just said, that these cards are not mandatory, but in the next word he says anybody who does not have a card will not be able to work. Well, this will be implemented by the end of the Parliament. These are the words of dictatorship, because he's taken it upon himself to force his will on the people.
Absolutely. I mean, let's be right. I mean, the leftists call us Nazis and what have you. Like, Stalin killed tens of millions of his own people. He killed far more people than Hitler ever did.
Chairman Mao.
But these people, again, another one. These people disregard that. Anyone who doesn't agree with them is a Nazi. But this is one step too far. The Russians and the Chinese hackers will be into those databases before the government's even had time to put a password on it. It's just not safe. And it's putting us all at risk, every one of us, all our details. And they will keep encroaching on this. They'll just add bank details, they'll add health details. That's what Blair said he wanted to do back in the 2000s. How nice is it to walk around with all this information with you on a little card, they used to say. Everything about your life, from birth to grave, will be on that card. And that's what they still want to do, Mark.
Trevor, what would those young men that gave their lives for our freedom in the Second World War make of Britain in 2025?
Well, if they live now, they wouldn't go. They wouldn't bother fighting. There's no point. We've surrendered. And Starmer's the leading surrender monkey. He gave away Chagos. He's renegotiated Gibraltar. The Falklands will be next. You just watch. If they stay another 4 years, the Falklands will be gone as well. They'll give anything away. They've got absolutely no sense of our history. They don't care. They're ashamed of this country. and they'll do anything to sort of disparage the people.
Trevor, I enjoyed your company very much today. Please call me again soon. Trevor in Derbyshire. We're going to hear from a senior Labour advisor about the digital ID scheme, and he's going to defend Labour's record in power, and he's got a very optimistic vision for the next few years under Sir Keir Starmer. He tells us Starmer's not going anywhere. That's before 1 p.m. I've got to say that earlier in the show, I did something a touch outrageous. You see, you should never leave scissors in the studio when I'm around, because I always misuse them. I'm really unhappy about this digital ID. So if you weren't listening or watching earlier in the show, here is a clip of me being very forthright in my view of this digital ID platform. Take a listen. Here we go again with digital ID, and I'm not having it. Now, the team have actually mocked up what would be my digital ID when this is rolled out in the next couple of years, which I think you'll agree is an excellent piece of artwork. Well done to the team and their efforts on Photoshop. And I feel very strongly about this because I think that these digital IDs are illiberal, authoritarian, un-British, Orwellian and wrong. Which is why I have commissioned a pair of Talk's finest scissors to cut up this disgusting, wretched, evil, creepy, totalitarian document, because my message is very clear when it comes to digital ID. No, no, no. And Sir Keir Starmer, you can take your digital ID card and you can shove it where the sun doesn't shine. You know, at some point, I'm going to have to get off that fence, aren't I? If you disagree with me, by the way, and you back the digital ID, give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Alicia will actually accelerate your call to the front of the queue if you think they're a good thing, because actually polling suggests a majority welcome it. So let's get out of that echo chamber and let's have a wider conversation. But Graham is in Berkshire. Graham, am I going to get cancelled for chopping up my digital ID? I'm a bit nervous now.
No, but I would like to keep replaying it because I want to do it with mine.
Do it.
It's a complete lie about the work, because at the moment we have an NI number, and that's given to us when we're about 15 and a half.
Yeah.
That NI number is required for you to go onto the payroll systems, so that you can be paid our HMRC's systems. The company has to put them on. If you're a foreign national, you have to have, the employer has to have a copy of your passport plus the visa page photocopied.
Yeah.
And therefore making sure you've got the right to work. So the people who are avoiding that now will avoid the ID card. They're still pay people. And as for somebody who said paying by cash, if you pay by cash, you still, if you're doing it properly and you're not the type of person who would avoid it anyway, have to put it through the payroll system. So I don't see it. We've already got enough IDs on us, and we're not quite sure whether we should produce them or not produce them or whatever. But my biggest question for you is, with the totalitarian system that we have at the moment, do you trust the government to use that data properly?
I most definitely don't. And the reason I can answer that confidently, Graham, is the behaviour of the government, the last Conservative government and the authorities during the pandemic, when scientific dissent was silenced and when true misinformation was peddled about vaccines and about medical treatments, about, you know, the junk modelling regarding COVID fatalities. That's when my trust eviscerated.
Oh, that's how you kept the government kept employing the guy who got caught with his mistress.
Yeah, Professor Pantsdown. Yeah, Ferguson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then again, I believe that if you lie about being a solicitor, you should be sacked. It's a criminal offence anyway.
Graham, you talked a lot of sense. Call me again soon. A fascinating call there from Graham in Berkshire, who says that the digital ID is a non-starter. Will Labour ever get this rolled out? Well, I'll be speaking to one of their former top advisors next.
Of course, this all started under Tony Blair. All of this massive, I think, outrageous policy of open borders effectively is what we've had since those years. The Conservatives promised in every manifesto in all those elections, with all the different prime ministers we had, to do something about this.
Bring it down to the tens of thousands net migration.
We failed to do it. Any prime minister, I think, in modern times who saw the importance of protecting British borders and limiting immigration was Mrs Thatcher.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hilton has messaged the programme. What Starmer has just said, that these cards are not mandatory, but in the next word he says anybody who does not have a card will not be able to work. Well, that means that this will be implemented by the end of the Parliament, and that is a dictatorship. That's dictatorial. Stuart says, Mark, anything Labour wants, I'm against, and everything they try to make us do, I will not. And right now, I'm so ashamed to be British, and I just long for the day that Starmer and Labour are replaced by Nigel and Reform. And John says, digital IDs, they already know who is in the country, because the first thing immigrants do is register with the NHS. This seems to be an excuse to take no constructive action. Well, let's defend the policy and the government in the company of a good friend of mine, Paul Richards, former Labour Special Advisor. Paul, this policy of a digital ID is playing very badly with my viewers and listeners. Do you think it was a misjudgment on the part of the Prime Minister to announce it?
I think it's a brilliant move. It's got everyone talking about something Labour is doing for once, rather than Labour reacting to what everyone else is doing. I think the policy itself is a good one, and I'm sure we'll discuss that in a second. But also it fills up the airwaves ahead of the Labour Party conference this weekend. So we're talking about that and perhaps not some of the other things in the news. So it's in news management terms, it's a brilliant idea. It's annoyed all the right people, you know, from Labour's point of view. People seem to be losing their minds over this. Sorry, Mark.
It's annoyed all the right people, voters, you know, British citizens.
It's got popular support as far as we can tell. It's annoyed the Conservative Party, Reform, the Greens and the Corbynites. So we're probably doing something right. And it's something that obviously will have to go through the scrutiny of Parliament. And people are saying, oh, this is dictatorship. It's going to go through our Parliament for discussion and debate and be a piece of law that will have to be properly deliberated on by all the committee systems and all of that to make it work. But you know, for once, Labour is on the front foot. And the most important thing from my point of view is it will help secure the borders and mean that you can't have this pull factor for people coming in to work in the underground economy, which has got to be a good thing that everyone supports, surely.
Paul, if it was such a good idea, why wasn't it in Labour's 2024 manifesto?
Well, it's been Labour policy since the days of Tony Blair. I mean, that government tried to introduce it, failed for whatever reason. The technology now is there for us to do it. The fact that it's not in the manifesto doesn't mean that it's not a good idea, or indeed been in the back of our minds for a long time. We've seen lots of policy papers on this flying about in recent times, and I've debated it in the media in the last few weeks. So it's always been bubbling away. It's not
what else are Labour going to do that isn't in the manifesto but that they've always believed? State ownership of the means of production, perhaps? I mean, what else has Keir Starmer got up his sleeve that isn't in the manifesto?
I think an app on your phone that has your NI, your employment status and your address that helps you get a job. It's not quite the same as nationalising Marks and Spencers, is it? So I don't think that's as likely. But governments in office do have to do things sometimes which are not in the manifesto. I'm thinking of the last government and things like Eat Out to Help Out. That wasn't in the manifesto, but they decided to do it because of the crisis we were facing. And, you know, the border crisis is a crisis. And this is another way we can tackle it by making sure people can't come in and work in the black economy.
Paul, delighted to have you on the show. Let's get the views, if you don't mind, of Phil in Hertfordshire. Hello, Phil.
Good afternoon, Mark. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon.
Good to have you on the show. Now, listen, put Paul Richards right about this. Why are you concerned about digital ID?
Right, this is why I'm concerned. They are applying the same psychology that they did with the COVID jab. It's not mandatory. However, if you don't get it, you can't work. If you don't get it, you can't travel. If you don't get it, you won't be able to do this. You won't be able to go to the theatre. It's the same psychology that they're applying, and they think they got away with it last time, and they think they can do it again. And not only that, please explain to me how me and yourself and people out there listening to the show, by having digital ID, is going to stop one person getting in a dinghy and coming over the channel. And also, what about our national insurance numbers? Are they going to be null and void now? Because that's what we have to give to our employer when we work.
Paul Richards, Phil raises a lot of points there. He speaks for many of my viewers and listeners. What's your reaction?
Well, you won't need your ID to go to the theatre, and you won't have to. It can't be demanded on the street by the Stasi. You know, those of us that grew up with all those post-war films. You know, the idea of showing your papers and all that—that's not going to happen either. We've all got ID about a person all the time anyway. If you go and pick up a vintage parcel, or get something off Amazon or whatever delivered, you're showing your ID all the time. Young people have to do it before going and getting a pint. So it's something that we do as Brits, but this is having a single identify thing on your phone. It won't be papers you have to show. And of course, Phil's right. It's not going to stop the boats overnight if people say, oh, no, I'll have to get a digital ID. But it's just another way to stop those pull factors and crack down on some of those rogue employers who are employing people off the books, because without the ID, no work.
Why can't it be voluntary? Because back in the day with COVID, I had no problem with people wearing a mask. No problem. And get vaccinated. I was delighted the vaccine was available to people. It was the mandatory nature of the mask and vaccines.
We remember you. Did you burn it or set fire to it or something?
I chopped it up with a pair of scissors. I've just done the same with the digital ID. Why can't it be? If it's such a good idea, why can't it be voluntary?
Well, in the same way that the driving licence isn't voluntary, it's something that everyone has to have as citizens. It's a mark of our citizenship, which we value, and it's something.
You don't have to have a driving licence. You don't have to have a driving licence.
But if you want, but you do have to have a driving licence to drive a car. Is the point, isn't it? And it's not something you can decide to have or not. So the state does have the right to say there are certain things we all have to do as citizens, and that's part of the.
You could choose not to drive, and therefore you don't have to have a driving licence. So therefore, it's not mandatory.
And you could choose not to work, but if you want to work, you need the ID. That's the idea. It's going to.
But Phil's right. That's authoritarian, isn't it?
It's not authoritarian because there's all kinds of laws that relate to work that are in place now. It's not authoritarian. We don't live in a sort of libertarian utopia where there are no laws. There are laws, and we have to abide them. And this is going to be another one. But with the conflation with COVID, I just think people are getting a little bit mixed up here. It's nothing to do with COVID or anything else to do with masks or anything like that. It's about showing who you are before you get employment, in the same way you have to show who you are before you pick up a parcel at the post office.
And briefly, Paul, what about Age UK, who have criticised the ID card scheme as chaotic, unfair and inefficient?
There are a very small number of people now who don't have a smartphone. That is true. And then as the law goes through Parliament, they'll have to debate that and include everybody, because digital exclusion is an issue. But let's face it, most people we know, I think, have got a smartphone and have lots of ID already on there, and lots of other apps that record their health and how many miles they've run and what they've eaten and everything else. So the technology is now caught up with the idea. The Blair government failed, I think, because the technology wasn't there to do this last time. But now it's a runner. So let's get on with it.
Paul, as always, a real pleasure to have you on the show. We'll catch up soon. My thanks to Paul Richards, former Labour Special Advisor. Oh, Ian Collins, hello. Where to start? I'm getting echoes of the pandemic. Anything that's mandated now, and I'm afraid I'm triggered.
Do you know what? I've worked it out. Compulsory ID cards for the double jabbed. There you go.
Great, because they love it anyway.
Correct.
They want to be told what to do.
If you went down that route, then you get your ID card. I love the way that Starmer says free. It's free.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you nice man.
Yeah, like the NHS is free.
Yeah, it's free. We haven't got to pay for this state observationist thing that's about to start.
Unfortunately, though, Ian, we know about those people who went along with the lockdowns.
Yeah.
And